Chapter 548. Swindler. These two words were extremely harsh to the ears in the casino. Hearing the Baldi's clamor, the other people's faces became gloomy. Gambling with a swindler, wasn't that the same as giving money to the other side? Many people were indignant. No wonder he was so calm and composed. He didn't even look at his cards and dared to place bets. It was as if he had seen through his cards. This kind of godly gambling technique was too similar to a swindler. So he is a swindler. No wonder he is so powerful. No, we must make him spit out the money he won. This brat's guts are really big. He dares to cheat in the ordinary balanced courtyard. Does he not want his hands anymore? Everyone was discussing spiritedly. Many people surrounded them. They wanted to see what this unbridled fellow looked like. Most of them were rich people in the ordinary balanced courtyard. No one recognized Tang Zheng. But there were people who recognized Lin Hu and Fire Phoenix. After all, these two were local tyrants. Although they had retired from Jianghu, they were still imprinted in many people's minds. Who is this brat? He actually dares to sit so casually and let Lin Hu and Fire Phoenix stand like two followers? Some people were incomparably shocked. They sized up Tang Zheng as if they wanted to see through his origin. The Baldi clearly didn't recognize Tang Zheng's group. He angrily stammered and shouted, "Don't let them go. They cheated people. Kill them or cripple them." With this shout, several guards walked over. They looked at Tang Zheng's group of four with unkind eyes. They fiercely said, "You cheated?" Feng Yong immediately exploded. He shouted, "Which eye of yours saw us cheated? Let me tell you, my boss is the god of gambling. He is not a cheater. If you can't afford to play, then don't play. You are making a fool of yourself." Saying this, he disdainfully glanced at the Baldi. The Baldi could also be considered a successful person. When had he ever been looked down upon by two brats? He immediately flew into a rage and said, "If we didn't cheat, how could we win?" Feng Yong still wanted to refute, but Tang Zheng waved his hand, indicating him to calm down. He looked at the Baldi with ridicule and said, "To win against you is very simple. Moreover, you keep saying that I cheated. Which eye of yours saw it?" Baldi was speechless. It wasn't just him. No one in the room had seen Tang Zheng cheat. He had only touched his trump card at the last moment when the cards were revealed. Therefore, the chances of him cheating were very slim. How did Tang Zheng do all this? Of course, it was the effect of the illusion. As long as he used the illusion, these cards could appear as he wanted others to see them. In other words, he could change the cards in his hand into any card he wanted in the eyes of others. This was simply a heaven-defying cheat. No one could win against him. Today, Tang Zheng was here to kick up a fuss, not to gamble, so of course he wouldn't follow the rules. If the ordinary balanced courtyard slandered a guest for cheating, then the name of the ordinary balanced courtyard should be removed. Tang Zheng said in a bad mood. Several of the guards' hearts trembled. They couldn't bear this kind of responsibility. They hurriedly sent someone to inform the others and let an expert come out. Tang Zheng calmly sat on the fishing platform. He pointed at the pile of chips on the table and said to Feng Yong, "Bring them over." Feng Yong was radiant with joy as he took over the chips. He thought to himself that this was really king satisfying. He had won several million in one go and had made these people lose their courage. Baldi still wanted to stop him but was pushed aside by Feng Yong. Feng Yong was no longer the same as before. He was a martial artist. Among ordinary people, he could be considered a powerful character. Therefore, how could Baldi be his opponent? Baldi felt a strong force coming at him. He staggered back and sat down on the ground. The others were shocked and quickly scattered to avoid him. Feng Yong disdainfully glared at Baldi and said, "I just said that my boss would beat you until you didn't even have your underwear. You didn't believe me. Now are you dumbfounded?" Baldi was flustered and exasperated as he crawled up and hid behind a guard. He put on a strong front and said, "You dare hit me? I definitely won't let you off. As for your ordinary balanced courtyard, you connived with a swindler. Could it be that you really want to ruin your own reputation?" "Heng, how could the ordinary balanced courtyard's reputation be ruined by a few brats? Since it's the gambling god, then I'll bet with you." A person walked out with a majestic gait. This person was an old man. His eyes were bright and full of expression. His gaze was sharp. "Wah, Ghost Hand has made his move. This brat is going to be in big trouble." The crowd began to whisper. "I've long since heard of Ghost Hand's strength. It's just that I've never had the chance to see it. I've heard that a swindler came to the ordinary balanced courtyard to gamble. In the end, Ghost Hand completely defeated him. Moreover, he was caught cheating and had his hands cut off. That's right. Ghost Hand's name isn't for nothing. Ghost Hand's moves are like lightning. He's so fast that he doesn't even leave a shadow. No one can see him clearly. But this brat is also very strange. His gambling skills aren't bad either. Maybe there really will be something to see. I hate to have such a wonderful show on the first day of the new year. This trip really wasn't made in vain. Hearing this discussion, Tang Jing also sized up Ghost Hand. Apart from being more hale and hearty than an ordinary old man, there wasn't much of a difference. It made people doubt the authenticity of his words. But Tang Jing wasn't worried. Even if the other party was a gambling expert, he still wouldn't be able to do anything to Tang Jing. Illusions were much more profound than gambling. You want to bet with me? Tang Jing looked at the other party with interest. Yes. I wonder if your distinguished self dares? Why wouldn't I dare? Tang Jing shrugged his shoulders. I also want to know how much weight the ordinary balance courtyard has. The weight of the ordinary balance courtyard isn't light. An ordinary person would be crushed to the ground by this weight. Ghost Hand said meaningfully. I don't have any other strong points. It's just that my skin is rough and my flesh is thick. If you want to crush me, the ordinary balance courtyard isn't qualified. Tang Jing said bluntly. Once these words were spoken, everyone was shocked. What a big tone. The ordinary balance courtyard wasn't qualified to crush him. In these people's hearts, not to mention the ordinary balance city, even if it was the entire country, there weren't many people who would dare to speak like this. This was because many people knew that behind the ordinary balance courtyard was the Song family. Challenging the ordinary balance courtyard was equivalent to opposing the current Song family. To these people, the Song family was already equivalent to floating in the clouds. They were too high to reach. No one dared to touch this tiger's whiskers. That was why Tang Jing's words had caused such a huge reaction. Ghost Hand's eyes flashed with a sharp light. He confidently said, It seems your distinguished self has come with a reason. Since that's the case, then let's see who will win at the gambling table. The corner of Tang Jing's mouth curled, tacitly agreeing with his proposal. Seeing the other party sit down, he said, Since you are representing the ordinary balance courtyard, then this bet naturally can't be so small. A few million or even tens of millions is meaningless. Some people sucked in a cold breath. A few million or even tens of millions was nothing in his eyes. Just how much was he prepared to bet? Ghost Hand's eyebrows jumped. He said, Since we've opened the gambling house, then of course we have to satisfy our guests. Your distinguished self, just how much is the desperate situation betting? Tang Jing raised his head and looked around. After admiring his surroundings, he said, Let's bet on the ownership of the ordinary balance courtyard. We'll decide the winner in one round. This was something that Tang Jing had come up with on the spur of the moment. Previously, he had been prepared to directly take action and use force to seize the ordinary balance courtyard. But after thinking about it, he realized that if he did that, then his reputation wouldn't be too good. It would affect the business of this new club in the future. The gains didn't make up for the losses. The ordinary balance courtyard was a hen that could lay golden eggs. Tang Jing naturally wouldn't kill the hen to get the eggs. But through this gambling house, he could openly win back the ordinary balance courtyard. That would be enough to shut the mouths of those people. He had purposely angered the people at the gambling table in order to make the ordinary balance courtyard send someone to gamble with him. This would save him time. The ownership of the ordinary balance courtyard? Gui Shou's face turned pale with fright. This person had clearly come to cause trouble. In all these years, he had never seen someone who didn't know what was good for him. Correct. If I win against you, then the ordinary balance courtyard will change owners and become mine. Tang Jing firmly said. The crowd was in an uproar. This person had gone crazy. He actually dared to boast so shamelessly. He even wanted to swallow the ordinary balance courtyard. Wasn't he afraid of bursting his stomach? Gui Shou's expression kept changing. He was one of the managers of the ordinary balance courtyard, but he was unable to decide the fate of the entire ordinary balance courtyard. However, this wasn't a problem for him. He calmly said, You want to win the ordinary balance courtyard? You want to go on stage with just a few million chips? There isn't such a good thing in this world. Tang Jing disapprovingly retorted, Who said I only used a few million chips? Then you want to exchange for more chips? Tang Jing shook his head, This is my chip. He took out a brocade box and placed it on the table in front of him. The other people all stretched out their necks, curiously looking at the brocade box. They wanted to see just what kind of treasure was inside. What is this? Gui Shou asked. Life-continuing pill. Life-continuing pill? Everyone's face was filled with suspicion. These people were separated from the capital by thousands of miles. Although the last auction had caused a huge commotion, the majority of them still didn't know the details of this matter. Of course they hadn't heard of the life-continuing pill. Gui Shou's face was also filled with suspicion. He had clearly never heard of this term. The life-continuing pill is incomparably precious. It is perfect for betting. Tang Jing paused for a moment. Looking at him, he said, "If you don't believe me, then you can call back and ask about the life-continuing pill." Gui Shou hesitated for a moment before really pulling out his phone. After a while, he confirmed that there really was a life-continuing pill. "Why do you have the life-continuing pill? That isn't something you need to worry about. I'll only say one thing. The life-continuing pill's effects are absolutely true." Gui Shou couldn't help but feel a rush of excitement. The wrinkles at the corner of his eyes gradually smoothed out as if he had a second spring. His face gradually became rosy. Gui Shou had already decided that if he won the life-continuing pill and gave it to the Song family, then his future would be even brighter. Of course he didn't think that he would lose. His gambling skills were exquisite and Tang Jing wouldn't be able to compare to him. So in this bet he was completely empty-handed. As long as he won the life-continuing pill, then he would reach the heavens in a single step. Chapter 549. The others didn't know what the hell the life-continuing pill was, but it was actually worth so much money. They all rubbed their eyes, preparing to see the true face of the life-continuing pill after Ghost Hand won so that they could brag to others in the future. It was clear that the majority of the people still believed in Ghost Hand's gambling skills. They believed that this gambling god who had suddenly appeared must be bluffing and would definitely lose. Ghost Hand signaled the beautiful dealer with his eyes, allowing her to deal the cards. The others surrounded the gambling table, admiring this unique gambling game. Just at this moment, a person quickly walked into the gambling hall and loudly shouted, "Tang Jing, you sure have guts, daring to come to the ordinary balance courtyard to cause trouble." The crowd was fiercely split apart as the people surrounding the gambling table staggered back, revealing a path. A person walked in with the vigor of a tiger. Many people angrily glared at him, wanting to scold him, but when they met his eyes, their hearts trembled and they swallowed the words that were about to come out of their mouths. Seeing this person, Tang Jing's pupils couldn't help but shrink. His gaze became sharp as he expressionlessly looked at the other person and asked, "Qin Lao, it's really been a long time. Why didn't you stay in Beijing? What did you come to the ordinary balance courtyard for?" This person was Song Yu's bodyguard. Back then, the two of them had met for the first time in the ordinary balance courtyard. At that time, Tang Jing was quite afraid of him. Greater than over equal to, but things were different now. Tang Jing no longer needed to be afraid of the other person. Qin Lao heard Tang Jing's question and said with an unkind expression, "I can come and go as I please. Do I need to tell you what to do?" Actually, when Qin Lao saw Tang Jing again, his heart was filled with anger and regret. If he had hardened his heart back then and directly killed Tang Jing, then he wouldn't have created such a strong enemy for the Song family. However, there was no medicine for regret in this world. As he watched Tang Jing grow stronger step by step, he felt powerless. He deeply felt a sense of powerlessness. As a person who thought highly of himself, he could accept being weaker than the members of the several great families. However, he couldn't bear to see Tang Jing become stronger. This was because he had looked down on Tang Jing from the very beginning. Of course, Tang Jing could tell that the other party was looking down on him, but he didn't care and said, "You don't need to tell me, but ordinary balance is my hometown. If the Song family dares to stir up trouble here, I definitely won't stand by and watch." A murderous glint flashed in Qin Lao's eyes. This time he was not here for a vacation. He was here with a mission. The Song family really regarded Tang Jing as a threat, so they began to research strategies to deal with Tang Jing. After some discussion, they finally decided to start with Tang Jing's headquarters, Ordinary Balance. Hadn't the underground forces in Tang Jing's hands been wiped out? Then they would take advantage of this period of vacuum to occupy the underground world of Ordinary Balance. From there, they could use this underground force to attack Tang Jing when necessary. Of course, this wasn't a complicated matter and it wasn't a big deal. Therefore, the Song family only sent Elder Qin as a representative. A few days ago, they had contacted the underground forces in the surrounding counties and cities and were prepared to take action after the Spring Festival. Of course, these underground forces were flattered and treated Qin Lao as a distinguished guest. Usually, they would not have the opportunity to get in touch with the famous Song family. Of course, they would not let go of this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. They had been waiting for Qin Lao to give the order. Then, the army would come and occupy the underground world of Ordinary Balance. Although the underground forces of the nearby counties and cities had heard of the power of Chongqing City's extraordinary underground forces, they were still swept away by the authorities in the end. Therefore their original trace of fear disappeared like smoke in thin air. However, Qin Lao never expected to see Tang Zheng in Ordinary Balance's courtyard on the first day of the Spring Festival. He did not believe that Tang Zheng came with bad intentions. He did not believe that Tang Zheng came just to win a few rounds of gambling. Therefore, when he found Tang Zheng's figure in the surveillance and Ghost Hand wanted to bet with him, he could not wait to rush over. No matter what Tang Zheng's purpose was, he would not let Tang Zheng succeed. Hearing Tang Zheng's threat, Qin Lao held back his killing intent. However, the others were stunned. Just who was this person? He actually dared to go against the Song family's people. Some well-informed people immediately remembered that Ordinary Balance had caused a huge uproar and instantly guessed Tang Zheng's identity. Those who originally had a doubtful attitude could not help but somewhat believe it. Perhaps this young man called Tang Zheng really did have outstanding ability. That was why he dared to go against the Song family and cause such a huge disturbance. Tang Zheng, I don't care what you do in other places. If you dare to cause trouble in Ordinary Balance's courtyard, then don't blame me for being impolite. Ordinary Balance's courtyard is open for guests. Is this how you treat your guests? If you really have something to say, then it won't be too late to say it after I finish betting with Ghost Hand. Tang Zheng said. Qin Lao immediately looked at Ghost Hand and scolded, Who told you to bet with him? I. Ghost Hand was speechless. He did not know who this young man was to actually make the usually aloof Qin Lao so afraid. You're not allowed to bet anymore. Qin Lao said without any trace of politeness. Although Ghost Hand was a gambling expert, his position in the Song family was far from being on par with Qin Lao. Hearing him say this, he did not dare disobey and nodded, Yes, Qin Lao. Tang Zheng coldly watched from the sidelines. How could he let Qin Lao disrupt his plans? He sneered, Qin Lao, you really have a lot of face. Just because you say you won't bet, you won't bet? Who do you think you are? Since you agreed to bet with me, then you can only finish the bet. Tang Zheng's unprecedented, unyielding attitude caused Qin Lao to fly into a rage. He fiercely glared at Ghost Hand and asked, What is your bet? A life-continuing pill. Ghost Hand nervously said. When Qin Lao heard the name life-continuing pill, his eyes lit up with joy. He was already at the end of his life. If he could obtain a life-continuing pill, then his future cultivation would definitely be able to reach the next level. Although the Song family had obtained 2 life-continuing pills at the auction, where would he get a share? So when he heard the 3 words life-continuing pill, he could not help but feel a surge of emotion and let his imagination run wild. But before he could be happy for too long, he saw Tang Zheng point to the roof and add, There is also this Ordinary Balance courtyard. What Ordinary Balance courtyard? Qin Lao's heart skipped a beat and his face turned pale with fright. Ghost Hand, who gave you the right to use the Ordinary Balance courtyard as a bet? Ghost Hand's face was deathly pale as he stammered, unable to say a single word. Ghost Hand cannot make this decision, so this bet is invalid and does not count. Qin Lao firmly said. Tang Zheng revealed a smile that was not a smile and said, Since he agreed to my bet, it won't be that easy to give up halfway. If he doesn't want to bet with you, then I want to see what you can do. Tang Zheng's eyes turned cold as he gave Lin Hu a meaningful glance. Lin Hu tacitly understood and grabbed Ghost Hand. He pressed him onto the gambling table and said, If you don't want to bet, then don't bet. Who do you think you are? Ghost Hand's gambling skills were very good, but he did not have any skills. He was so scared that he trembled and looked towards Qin Lao for help. Qin Lao flew into a rage and said, Tang Zheng, you dare to touch a Song family member? You are courting death. After saying this, he stepped forward like a fierce tiger and grabbed at Lin Hu. Wah! Immediately, cries of alarm rang out as everyone retreated 3 steps back. However, there was not the slightest trace of fear between their brows. Instead, their eyes burned with passion. This kind of excitement was not easy to see. On the first day of the new year, there were many good shows appearing one after another. It was truly wonderful. Seeing that Qin Lao was about to grab Lin Hu did not have the slightest bit of resistance in front of him. However, Lin Hu did not have the slightest bit of fear, nor did he retreat. Instead, he grabbed Ghost Hand even tighter. A hand appeared in front of Lin Hu, blocking Qin Lao's attack. With a muffled sound, Qin Lao staggered backwards, knocking into several guards before stopping. He was battered and exhausted. The air froze for a few seconds. No one dared to breathe too loudly as they watched this scene in disbelief. With just one move, Tang Zheng forced his opponent to retreat. As a result, the winner was immediately decided. Old Man Qin's face turned the color of a pig's liver as he looked at the ridicule in everyone's eyes. He felt as if he was about to go crazy. With a low roar, he charged towards Tang Zheng like a wild beast. A sharp light flashed in Tang Zheng's eyes. Seeing that Qin Lao was about to close in, his figure flashed and dodged the opponent's attack. Then he grabbed Qin Lao's collar and pressed him against the gambling table. A cold light flashed in his hand and a dagger appeared. With a fierce stab, the back of Qin Lao's hand was nailed to the gambling table. Blood flowed and dyed the gambling table red. These few moves were clean and neat. It was so handsome that many women in the crowd had their eyes lit up. They exclaimed softly, "Wow, so handsome, so manly." The men were shocked by Tang Zheng's decisive killing move. They were speechless for a long time. Qin Lao unconsciously let out a scream. His forehead was covered in cold sweat as he angrily roared, "Tang Zheng, you dare to touch me? I even dared to kill the Chu clan's patriarch, let alone a small character like you. Do you think that if I really kill you, what can the Song family do to me?" Tang Zheng disdainfully said. Qin Lao's heartstrings trembled. Only now did he remember Tang Zheng's actions. He was no longer the small character he was before. Instead, he was a decisive and ruthless person. Just like Tang Zheng said, even if he killed Qin Lao, what could the Song family do to him? Immediately he felt a strong sense of fear. He struggled with all his might, wanting to escape from Tang Zheng's hands. However, Tang Zheng pointed at his body and his acupuncture points were immediately sealed. He was unable to move. Blood quickly flowed out from the back of his hand and dyed the gambling table red. Ghost Hand was pressed onto the gambling table. He could only watch as the blood flowed towards his mouth like a small stream. He was so scared that he screamed. The beautiful dealer was so scared that her face lost all color. She fell to the ground. Tang Zheng indicated for Lin Hu to let go of Ghost Hand and said, "Our gambling will continue. Now that we don't have this annoying fly interfering, we can gamble to our heart's content." Ghost Hand trembled incessantly. His face was as white as paper. How could he still dare to gamble? He cowered and couldn't say a single word. It seems like you guys want to rest. That's fine as long as you don't care about him dying from blood loss." Tang Zheng indifferently shrugged and calmly sat down. Chapter 550. At this moment, Tang Zheng's aura was like a rainbow. Many people didn't dare to look at him directly, but Feng Yong was excited. He looked at Tang Zheng with eyes full of worship. He thought to himself that if he could be this handsome one day, he would have no regrets in life. Ghost Hand finally overcame the fear in his heart and urged, "Then let's hurry up and gamble." He was deeply afraid that Qin Lao would die from excessive blood loss because of him. If that happened, he would be blamed. The Song family would definitely hold him responsible. The young man in front of him was clearly here to cause trouble. Since he wasn't even afraid of the Song family, what else could he say? He could only use all his skills to gamble on this round. However, his confidence was no longer as strong as before. He was worried about his gains and losses. Tang Zheng squinted his eyes and smiled. He said to the dealer sitting on the ground, "Beauty, it's your turn to deal the cards. Don't be afraid. I'm not a bad person." The dealer was about to cry. "You're not a bad person? You pierced someone's palm with a knife and you're not a bad person." She was scared to death. With great difficulty, she restrained her weakness and stood trembling in front of the gambling table. However, when she saw the red blood that stained half of the gambling table, she almost fainted. "Deal the cards," Tang Zheng said. This time it was a bet between two people. There was no need to add additional stakes. All 5 cards were dealt at once. The gambling table in front of Tang Zheng and Ghost Hand was dyed red with blood. The dealer looked at Tang Zheng inquiringly. Should the cards be dealt like this? That way the cards would be stained with blood. Seeing that Tang Zheng didn't respond, the dealer could only muster up the courage to deal the cards to the blood-stained area. However, when the cards were about to land on the gambling table, the blood on the gambling table seemed to have a life of its own. It automatically flowed in all directions, leaving a clean spot. Not a trace of blood stained the cards. When everyone saw this magical scene, they were amazed. They didn't know how Tang Zheng did it. However, Ghost Hand's cards didn't have such preferential treatment. They were directly dealt into a pool of blood, which made the corner of Ghost Hand's mouth twitch. After the 5 cards were dealt, the faces of the two were very strange. The Ghost Hand table had 10 of spades, J, Q and K, which had a straight flush. On the other hand, Tang Zheng's cards were much smaller and very messy, with 2 of spades, 3 of spades, 7 of spades and 9 of spades, but there was also a possibility of a flush. Everyone else stared at their cards with their eyes wide open. It was as if they wanted to use X-ray vision to see through their cards. This kind of card was too interesting. There were many possibilities. Netherclaw resisted the urge to vomit and picked up a corner of his trump card from the pool of blood. The others also wanted to take a closer look, but Netherclaw blocked their line of sight, making it impossible for them to see. Tang Jing also looked at Netherclaw with interest. Since this person's gambling skills were so exquisite, and he was called Netherclaw, then he must have 1,000 techniques that had reached perfection. Otherwise, unless it was someone like Tang Jing who knew magic, how could others get whatever cards they wanted? Tang Jing had never seen anyone cheat, but when he thought about it, it was nothing more than two fast hands, changing cards before anyone noticed. Therefore Tang Jing specially stared at Netherclaw, wanting to see some clues. As expected, the moment Netherclaw raised his card, a card slipped out from his sleeve. With a light hook of his finger, the card on the table slipped into his sleeve. All of this happened in the blink of an eye. Ordinary people wouldn't be able to notice it at all. Only an expert like Tang Jing could see through it. He smiled proudly in his heart. As expected of Netherclaw, he was as hard to detect as a ghost. However, he didn't expose him. In front of him, all kinds of techniques were useless. Netherclaw successfully changed his card, and seeing that Tang Jing didn't have any reaction, he secretly let out a sigh of relief. The card change was successful, and the card in his hand was the ace of spades. Like this, it was a straight flush. Even if Tang Jing also had an ace of spades, it would be enough to beat him. The moment he changed his card, Tang Jing saw that his trump card had changed to the ace of spades, so he also knew his trump card. Even so, he sat steadily on Mount Tai, not showing the slightest bit of abnormality. Ordinary Balance's courtyard is safe. Netherclaw silently said in his heart, "This person is still lacking. My title of Netherclaw is not for nothing." Tang Jing looked at Netherclaw without batting an eyelid and said, "You're so confident. It seems like you got a good set of cards?" Netherclaw reservedly said, "It's okay." Hearing him say this, the others all guessed the clues and began to whisper to each other. Netherclaw's card can't be a straight flush, right? It's very possible, otherwise how could he be so confident? Then that means Tang Jing will definitely lose. Then everyone can see what the life-continuing pill is like. Don't say any more. Look, they're about to reveal their cards. Tang Jing didn't look at his own card, but only calmly looked at Netherclaw and said, "Since you're so confident, then let's reveal our cards together and reveal the answer. How about it?" Netherclaw's confidence increased a bit. The two of them grabbed their cards at the same time and flipped them over, fiercely slamming the two cards on the table. Pop-pop. With two soft sounds, Netherclaw's cards fell into a pool of blood, splashing out a few blood stains. But Tang Jing's cards still fell, and the blood on the table automatically retreated without the slightest trace of stain. Everyone's eyes widened as they looked at the two cards, and cries of alarm rang out. "Wah, how could it be this kind of card?" Qin Lao not only stared at Netherclaw, he also stared at Tang Jing, wanting to see if he cheated. But he saw that Netherclaw cheated, but he didn't see any sign of Tang Jing breaking the rules. This was because from beginning to end he only touched his cards when he flipped them over. At other times his hands weren't on the table, so there was no chance for him to cheat. But when he saw the cards on the table, Qin Lao was stunned, and his eyes almost fell out. What the hell was going on? The cards were two aces, one spade and one plum. But the spade was Tang Jing's card, and the plum was Netherclaw's. Netherclaw's face suddenly froze as he looked at the cards in disbelief. The plum was stained with blood and was exceptionally dazzling. He turned pale with fright and cried out crazily, "Impossible, absolutely impossible. My card was clearly the ace of spades, how could it become the ace of clubs?" Tang Jing looked at him with a smile and said, "Everyone here isn't blind. Can't you even tell the difference between a spade and a plum? Everyone take a look, who won and who lost." Without a doubt, of course it was Tang Jing who won. The cards in his hand were a flush, and Netherclaw's cards were a straight. The flush was bigger than the straight, so of course he won. Wow, this is really exciting. No one would have thought that Tang Jing's card would be the ace of spades. This victory was too close. Didn't Netherclaw always say that his card was the ace of spades? Why is it the ace of clubs? Could it be that his eyes are blurred and he mistook the plum for spades? It's very possible. A loss is a loss and a win is a win. Making such a ruckus, there's no elegance at all. The crowd was discussing spiritedly, but even more people were looking at them expectantly. This was because if Tang Jing won, then the ordinary Balance courtyard would change owners. But would Tang Jing really get what he wanted? Many people were still doubtful. Netherclaw had already sat down on the ground, forgetting to shout. He stared dumbstruck at Tang Jing, muttering to himself, "Impossible, impossible?" He had already cheated countless times and had never failed. How could he have mistaken the plum for a spade? So it could only be that Tang Jing's gambling skills were better than his, so he had switched cards. Of course Tang Jing didn't switch cards. A small illusion technique was enough to completely change both of their cards. Netherclaw was grief-stricken because he knew he was dead for sure. After losing the ordinary balance courtyard, how could the Song family let him off? Tang Jing stood up, cupped his hands towards the crowd and said, "Today I thank everyone for being witnesses. From now on the ordinary balance courtyard will change its surname to Tang. I hope everyone will support me in the future." "Tang Jing, don't even think about it." Qin Lao gnashed his teeth and said weakly. Tang Jing looked at him with ridicule and said, "Today is a joyous day. I don't want to kill anyone, so you better shut your mouth. Otherwise, next year's New Year's Day will be your death anniversary." Qin Lao's heart trembled. He wanted to say a few more tough words, but he forcibly held them back. He already understood that Tang Jing really dared to kill him. If he provoked him, he would be the one to suffer in the end. Moreover, his blood had been flowing non-stop, and his body had already become very weak. But he still fiercely glared at Netherclaw and said, "After losing the ordinary balance courtyard, you can just wait to die." When Netherclaw heard this, his whole body trembled and he completely collapsed. He crawled up from the ground in panic and screamed, "I don't want to die." Then he squeezed through the crowd and hurriedly fled outside. He fell at the entrance but crawled back up. Without caring about his injuries, he disappeared in the blink of an eye. Tang Jing didn't pay attention to him. This was just a small character. The Song family wouldn't let him go, so why would he need to take action? Tang Jing waved his hand at the trembling guards. These guards acted as if they were facing a great enemy. In their hearts, Qin Lao was a celestial existence. But in front of Tang Jing, Qin Lao was like a clay chicken that couldn't even withstand a single blow. They were even less of a match for him, so no one dared to do such a suicidal action. "Take him and scram for me. From now on, if he dares to take a single step into the ordinary balance courtyard, this will be his fate." The moment his voice fell, Tang Jing slammed his palm onto the gambling table, only to hear a "kacha" sound as the gambling table shattered into pieces. Almost everyone couldn't help but shiver, and an indescribable fear welled up in their hearts. At the same time, they firmly remembered Tang Jing's face in their hearts. In the future, when they returned, they would definitely warn their friends and family not to provoke this guy called Tang Jing in the ordinary balance courtyard. Otherwise, they would really die very, very miserably. In addition, when you return, tell Song Yu, "Don't think that I don't know what he has done in secret. I will pay him back double." Tang Jing added. The guards hurriedly nodded, and as if they had been granted amnesty, they took the almost unconscious Qin Lao and left. Then Tang Jing arranged for Lin Hu and Fire Phoenix to take over the ordinary balance courtyard. The two of them were no strangers to this kind of business, so they immediately took action. The guests also left one after another. Without a doubt, the ordinary balance courtyard would soon spread the news that the ordinary balance courtyard had changed owners. Chapter 551. The guards in ordinary balance's courtyard had been dismissed, but it was impossible for such a big club to not have any guards. However, this was not a problem for Tang Jing. He still had the mysterious power of the witch tribe in his hands, which was more than enough to be a guard. There was probably no other club with such a strong security force. Under the leadership of Tian Chanzi, the witch tribe had already gained a foothold in the southwest neighbor. Since his identity had been exposed, the witch tribe had to slowly stand on the stage. Coincidentally, during the Chinese New Year, he finally got in touch with Tian Chanzi. After all, this was a modern society and communication was very advanced. Both sides exchanged opinions, and Tian Chanzi immediately said that he would send some witch tribe warriors to ordinary balance. These witch tribe warriors had already adapted to modern life, so they would not have any problems in ordinary balance. As for the other matters in the club, Tang Jing, as a hands-off manager, left them all to Lin Hu and the others. He was relieved, but some people were living a life worse than death. Qin Lao's wound had stopped bleeding. His injury was not serious, but he had lost a lot of blood. He was a little dizzy, his legs were weak and his face was pale. At this moment he was sitting in a mansion in Jade Sand City. Jade Sand City was a provincial capital city, and it was much more prosperous than ordinary Balance City. He sat on the sofa without saying a word, and a few people carefully accompanied him. One of them was a middle-aged man with a square face and a fierce face. This man was Lei Ming, the leader of Jade Sand City's underground world, just like Huang San's position in ordinary balance. However, Lei Ming was after all a provincial capital city, so his influence was greater. This time, Qin Lao had allied with several underground forces, and Lei Ming was the biggest. Therefore, after he suffered a loss in ordinary balance, he rushed to Jade Sand City without stopping. To be honest, Qin Lao was still a little afraid that Tang Zheng would change his mind and take the opportunity to kill him. If that happened, he would definitely die even if he had 3 heads and 6 arms, so escaping to Lei Ming's territory was obviously much safer. He still hadn't reported the matter of the ordinary balance monastery to Songyu. That was because this was an extraordinary shame and humiliation for him. Although the ordinary balance monastery wasn't that important to the Song family, it had still fallen into the hands of others. If others found out, they would definitely become a laughingstock. Qin Lao was hesitant. He wasn't willing to flee back to Beijing like this. If he did, he wouldn't be able to raise his head in the Song family. However, he couldn't think of a good way to take back ordinary balance villa. After a while, Lei Ming finally couldn't bear it anymore. He said with righteous indignation, "Qin Lao, don't worry. He's just a kid who hasn't even grown hair yet. This time you've fallen into his trap. Next time we'll just have to find our way back." Qin Lao's eyebrows jumped. He was about to angrily say, "Do you think it'll be that easy to find our way back?" However, he swallowed the words that were about to come out of his mouth. He thoughtfully looked at Lei Ming and nodded, "With Boss Lei's words, then I'm relieved." Lei Ming was overjoyed. His actions had finally moved the other party. He hurriedly said, "Qin Lao, just watch. I'll definitely make this kid look good." "Aha, then what are you going to do? Doesn't he have a property in ordinary balance? We have a lot of people. We'll just directly smash his property and let him know the consequences of offending the Song family and you, Qin Lao." Lei Ming said as if it wasn't a big deal. Qin Lao sighed in his heart. He thought that the other party had some kind of trick up his sleeve, but it turned out that it was just a bunch of cheap tricks. They couldn't attack Tang Zheng's foundation at all. In the eyes of ordinary people, these so-called underground powers were so fierce that they did not dare to provoke them, but in old man Qin's eyes they were too small. The young master's move was not very clever, but it could only give Tang Zheng a little bit of trouble. However, Qin Lao didn't attack Lei Ming's self-confidence. Instead, he encouraged him, "Oh, then I'll leave it to you." Lei Ming was overjoyed. He pointed at a young man sitting next to him and said, "Qin Lao, this is my son. I'll leave this matter to him. I guarantee that he'll do a good job." If Tang Zheng was here, he would definitely recognize this young man. This was the handsome young master who was slapped by Lan Yu in the shopping mall. His full name was Lei Jun. The handprint on Lei Jun's face had already disappeared, but the evil fire in his heart had nowhere to vent. That day he was slapped in front of a big star. After the incident, he still couldn't find the culprit. This caused him to lose a lot of face. The big star that he originally had hopes of winning over flew away just like that. It was too late for regrets. Since his old man gave him such an important task, then he would use this person to vent his anger and relieve the evil fire in his heart. Lei Jun looked at Qin Lao and squeezed out a smile, saying, "Qin Lao, please rest assured. I will definitely not disappoint you and complete the task." Qin Lao nodded his head in approval. But Qin Lao didn't place his hopes on this unreliable father and son pair. Instead, he went to find another person. In this province, only he had the authority to help him take back the ordinary balance courtyard. Tang Jing didn't know about Qin Lao's countermeasures. The sky was already dark. Just as he returned to his house, he was stopped by 2 people downstairs. Lan Yu and Wu's faces were calm. After seeing Tang Zheng, Lan Yu squeezed out a smile with great difficulty and said, "Little Zheng, I have to go." Tang Zheng's eyes flashed with a strange light. He thought that Lan Yu wanted to fight a long battle to the death. He didn't think that he would compromise so quickly. He was secretly happy and nodded his head without batting an eyelid. "Little Zheng, I originally thought that I could stay by your side to make up for the mistakes and regrets of these years. I didn't think that the heavens would make a fool of me. I have no choice but to leave." Lan Yu's expression was lost as he bitterly said, "If you have something to do, then go do it." Tang Zheng's heart couldn't help but soften. Although this period of time was short, he had seen everything that Lan Yu had done. However, it was impossible for him to forgive her just like that. In the future, you have to take good care of yourself. Don't put yourself in danger. Calm down when you encounter trouble. Don't be merciful to your enemies. Otherwise, the one who will be hurt in the end will be you or your family. Lan Yu began to nag endlessly, completely like a mother who was about to leave to her son. "I know. Tang Jing said indifferently. Seeing Master's wife's heartbroken appearance, Wu fiercely glared at Tang Jing and said unjustly, Tang Jing, do you know that Master's wife did this for your safety? Even Master and the martial sect broke off because of you, do you know? Tang Jing was surprised and asked curiously, the martial sect leader and the martial sect broke off? Yes, it's all because of you. Now it's all a mess. How could it be because of me? Tang Jing was confused, but he was also shocked by this news. As one of the three mysterious organizations, if the position of sect leader was changed, it would definitely cause a huge reaction from all sides. Who knows, it might even cause a storm, but how could this have anything to do with him? Seeing his blank expression, her martial chi came out of nowhere. Her master and mistress had done so much for him, yet he was completely unaware of it. Furthermore, he did not appreciate their kindness. It really angered her to death. She did not care that her mistress was hinting at her with her eyes and directly said, of course it's because of you. Because you are Master's son, and because you have the identity of a cultivator, how could the martial sect tolerate the sect master's son being a cultivator? Thus, for you, the sect master broke off relations with the two elders. As a result, they allied with the Li Palace's palace master and stripped him of his position as sect master. Tell me, if this isn't because of you, who else could it be? Seeing that Martial had directly ignored his gaze, Lan Yu hurriedly pulled Martial back, and said to Tang Jing with a forced smile, Little Zheng, don't listen to her nonsense, all of this is not because of you, it's just a scheme hatched by others, it has nothing to do with you. Tang Jing was not an idiot, of course he understood that what Wu said was the truth. He had actually affected the position of the martial sect leader, and that person had broken off relations with the martial sect because of him. This was indeed something that he did not expect. He had always thought that that person was drunk with power. Back then, in order to protect the position of sect leader, he had only watched as he was almost killed by others without doing anything. Therefore Tang Jing had always hated him. But now that he heard that person give up everything for him, it completely broke the image of that person in Tang Jing's eyes. For a moment, Tang Jing was at a loss for what to do. Mistress, I want to say it today. Maybe you guys were wrong back then, but now that you guys have done so much for him, he still has such a stinky face every day. Who exactly is he trying to show it to? Tang Jing, don't you usually brag about being fair and upright? You can put yourself in other people's shoes, but can't you put yourself in the shoes of master and mistress? If you were in their position, what would you do? At least I won't abandon my own child. Tang Jing blurted out. This was the eternal pain in his heart. Originally, the wound had already formed a scar, but because of the appearance of Lan Yu and Wu Junshan, the wound was torn open once again, dripping with blood. When Lan Yu heard this, his face turned as pale as paper. He trembled and said, Yes, it was our fault back then. I don't have the qualifications to beg for your forgiveness. Seeing her like this, Tang Jing couldn't bear it, but he stubbornly refused to admit his mistake. Seeing that, Wu scolded loudly, Tang Jing, you bastard. Do you know how cruel it is to treat mistress like this? Since you already know about the matter of the martial organization, then I still have to remind you that there is another mysterious power behind the elders and the Li Palace. You must be careful. I will also do my best to investigate and see who wants to deal with my child behind this. I will definitely not let my child be threatened again. Lan Yu said resolutely and decisively. Hearing these sonorous and powerful words filled with killing intent, Tang Jing felt a warm current flow through his head. Just as he was about to apologize, Lan Yu's figure disappeared in a flash. The moment she turned around, Tang Jing could clearly see a crystal-clear light flashing in her eyes. Seeing this scene, Wu Qi gasped for breath. He stomped his feet hatefully and said, You treat them like this, but they still treat you well without any complaints or regrets. Are you a blockhead? You're completely obedient to your women, and you're completely devoted to them. Don't tell me you're not willing to treat them better? Chapter 552. On the first day of the new year, Linger and Aimi left the ordinary balance and started the star creation project step by step according to the plan. Martial came one after another and still occupied Tang Jing's bedroom. Moreover, she did not have a good expression as she gnashed her teeth, wishing that she could beat up Tang Jing. Tang Jing originally did not want to bring along this burden, but he knew that his previous actions were somewhat inappropriate, so even if Martial was resentful, he did not fight back. In any case, it was not like Martial had not been by his side before, so he had already adapted to this kind of life. However, the old man was somewhat disappointed with Lan Yu's departure. He originally thought that this mother and son pair would improve their relationship, but it seemed that the road ahead was long and not easy. On the second day of the new year, Tang Jing did not stay idle as he came to Fang Shishir's house early. This was because yesterday Fang Shishir had told his parents that she wanted to have a meal with him. The only regrettable thing was that Martial, this burden, did not leave. No matter how he threatened her, she did not buy it. In the end, he had no choice but to compromise. Martial did this on purpose. Tang Jing dared to treat his master and mistress like that, so she could not let him do as he wished. She was very happy to add a bit of pressure to his heart. Standing at the door, Martial glanced at his empty hands, curled her lips and said, "It's the new year and you don't even know that I brought some gifts." Tang Jing shrugged his shoulders and gave a nonchalant smile. The door opened and Fang Shishir was pleasantly surprised as she stood at the door and called out, "Quickly come in." Suddenly, her face stiffened as she saw Martial behind Tang Jing and awkwardly said, "You also came." "If he wants to come, I can't do anything about it," Tang Jing helplessly said. Fang Shishir smiled and said, "No problem, it's the new year. Everyone should gather together. The more the merrier." However, Shi Mingqin clearly did not have any thoughts of livening things up with more people. When she saw Wu Ho, her expression instantly changed. She thought in her heart, just what is this Tang Jing up to? He even brought a girl to my house. Is he really trying to anger me? When she saw that Tang Jing was empty-handed, her face darkened. How could he not bring any gifts on New Year's Day? Was this the attitude of a junior? He didn't even put her in his eyes. Even though Shi Mingqin already knew that Tang Jing's background was not simple, it was also because of this that she took the initiative to invite Tang Jing to her home as a guest. Her attitude towards Tang Jing was unpredictable. Every time she found him pleasing to the eye, Tang Jing would make some trouble for her. But after that he would give her a big surprise. She had no choice but to adjust her attitude, which made her very tired. Fang Chonghua, on the other hand, was much calmer. He didn't have a strong impression of Tang Jing, although Tang Jing had many good points and flaws. Even though Shi Mingqin's expression was not good, Tang Jing still smiled and said, "Auntie, Happy New Year." Shi Mingqin was expressionless as she turned around to leave. "Auntie, this is my New Year's gift to you. It's just a small token of my respect." Tang Jing's eyes were sharp and his hands were fast as he hurriedly took out a porcelain bottle from his pocket. Shi Mingqin raised her foot but retracted it. She curiously looked at the porcelain bottle and said, "Just come, why bring a gift?" However, she silently cursed in her heart, "It's just a small porcelain bottle. It doesn't seem to be anything high grade. What good can it be?" She had a face of disappointment and was about to place it to the side. Fang Shishir saw through her mother's thoughts and hurriedly asked, "Tang Jing, what's inside?" She knew that Tang Jing's gift was definitely not ordinary, so she purposely asked to give her boyfriend some face. "Pill? Pill? Tang Jing, what is the meaning of this? Giving me medicine on New Year's Day, are you trying to curse me to death?" Shi Mingqin heard this and immediately flipped out. Fang Shishir revealed an awkward expression as she glared at Tang Jing. In her heart she was saying, how could he be so careless as to give her such a thing? However, she hurriedly explained for her boyfriend, "Mom, he definitely didn't mean it that way. He is just this careless, so please don't mind him. Auntie, this is not a normal pill. It is a pill refined by the king of medicine that can improve one's physique, retain one's youth and prolong one's life." Tang Jing explained. This was indeed refined by the king of medicine. When he first saw Tang Jing refine the life-continuing pill, he pondered over it for a period of time before finally coming up with this pill. Of course, this pill did not have as good of an effect as the life-continuing pill, but it did not lack many precious ingredients and special refining methods. It really did have the effects that Tang Jing said it had. Hearing the king of medicine's name, Shi Mingqin and Fang Chonghua's expressions slightly changed. Originally, they had met the king of medicine several times in the hospital. Afterwards, Fang Chonghua took this matter to heart and specially investigated the king of medicine. Only then did he know that the king of medicine actually had such a great reputation. This kind of expert was not someone they had the opportunity to come into contact with. Now that this small porcelain bottle actually contained a pill personally refined by the king of medicine, it was simply a priceless treasure. Shi Mingqin originally felt that she was unlucky, but at this moment her expression immediately changed. Unable to contain her joy, she asked, "Was it really refined by the king of medicine?" "This is a new pill refined by him. Currently there is only this small bottle in your hands and no one else has it," Tang Jing calmly said. "There's only one bottle in the world?" Shi Mingqin's eyes widened and even Fang Chonghua's face was filled with surprise and joy. He thought to himself that he had still underestimated the value of this pill. However, since there was only one bottle in the world and it was in Tang Jing's hands, then how good was the relationship between Tang Jing and the king of medicine? Otherwise, why would the king of medicine give such an important pill to him? Even though Fang Chonghua always knew that Tang Zheng would give him a surprise from time to time, he did not think that the surprise this time would be so big. Shi Mingqin hurriedly put it into her bosom as if she was afraid that Tang Zheng would go back on his word. This caused Fang Shishir to helplessly roll her eyes. Her mother was sometimes too snobbish, causing her to feel helpless. Tang Zheng already knew of Shi Mingqin's nature and did not mind. He then took out a jade bracelet and a jade guanyin and said, "This jade bracelet is prepared for auntie and this jade guanyin is prepared for uncle." Now that Tang Zheng had money, the jade items he bought would not be as low-end as before. These two jade items were worth several 100,000 each, and even in Shi Mingqin's eyes, they could be considered a decent gift. The contrast between Tang Zheng's before and after was too big, causing Shi Mingqin to be at a loss. She thought to herself that he could not have taken out the gifts earlier. This kind of contrast between before and after really made her heart unable to take it. Seeing her parents treat these two gifts as normal jade items, Fang Shishir hurriedly explained, "Dad, Mom, you must not look down on these two gifts. Their value is not any less than that bottle of pills. Don't joke around. It's only two jade items, how could they be compared to this kind of priceless treasure?" Shi Mingqin disagreed. "It's true. These two items are not normal jade items. They have been refined using a special method so they have a defensive effect. If someone attacks the wearer, the jade item will automatically cancel out the attack and protect the wearer." Shi Mingqin and Fang Chonghua looked at each other in dismay as they both thought of the same thing, the temple's magical equipment. Many rich people like to go to the temple to have their magical equipment consecrated by a great master. They believe that magical equipment can eliminate disasters, but many people understand that this is only a psychological effect. No one would actually be able to save their life because of this little toy. Hearing their daughter's words, they could not help but feel that their daughter was exaggerating. Seeing that they did not believe her, Fang Shishir anxiously said, "This is absolutely true. You must believe it. Tang Zheng spent a great deal of effort to refine these." "You refine them?" Tang Zheng smiled and nodded his head. The two of them were not clear on matters regarding cultivators and did not know Tang Zheng's true identity. Half believing and half doubting, they said, "Okay, we believe you. You must remember to wear them on your body at all times," Fang Shishir warned. Tang Zheng did not explain any further. Although the two of them clearly did not believe in this kind of miraculous use, they placed more of their attention on the small bottle of pills. Shi Mingqin asked for the details of how to use the pills and impatiently ran back to her room. After this interruption, the originally awkward atmosphere became joyous and harmonious. Fang Shishir quietly said to Tang Zheng, "Mom locked the pills in the safe as if she was afraid someone would steal them." Tang Zheng laughed involuntarily as he did not take these pills seriously and only took them out on a whim. However, this gave him an idea. Since he wanted to use the king of medicine as a gimmick to set up a pharmaceutical company, then these pills could be pushed into the market. There was no need to doubt the effects of these pills and they would definitely be popular. This was equivalent to having another source of income. Not long after, a table of delicacies was placed on the table. The few of them sat together and Fang Chonghua took the initiative to ask Tang Zheng to drink a few cups. Tang Zheng did not refuse and the two of them drank to their heart's content. Fang Chonghua excitedly asked, "Little Zheng, after the previous storm, what do you plan to do in the future?" "Reinvigorate the flag and drum, become bigger and stronger." Tang Zheng simply said 8 words. Fang Chonghua wrinkled his eyebrows and said, "This will not be easy. Where there is a will, there is a way." Tang Zheng faintly smiled, full of confidence. Fang Chonghua was suddenly startled as he was infected by Tang Zheng's strong confidence and could not help but feel ashamed of his own inferiority. He was implicated by Tang Zheng and during the Dragon Group's storm last time, several of his real estate projects were stopped. Thus, many of his business partners suddenly withdrew their investments, causing his capital chain to break. Although he was not bankrupt, he had no choice but to part with his treasures and stop many of his real estate projects. This year he did not have a good new year. When he was alone he would often frown and sigh. Now he did not have a place to raise funds and as time passed, his situation would only worsen. However, he was at his wit's end and could not find a breakthrough. "What are you planning to do?" Fang Chonghua casually asked. Tang Zheng did not hide anything and told him his business plan. Gradually, Fang Chonghua's face became more and more serious and finally became shocked. The wine cup in his hand tilted and he did not even notice the wine spilling on his clothes. Chapter 553. Fang Shishir, on the other hand, did not feel shocked as she looked at Tang Zheng in high spirits. The feeling of being in high spirits was extremely handsome. After Tang Jing finished speaking, Fang Chonghua and Shi Mingqin fell into a state of shock and only came back to their senses after a while. Fang Chonghua asked in disbelief, "Tang Jing, do you know how much money you need to invest in this business plan? It definitely won't be a small amount, but I don't have that much money right now." Shi Mingqin swallowed her saliva and said, "Young man, don't bite off more than you can chew. This business plan is not something that can be played with just a few million or even tens of millions." Tang Jing nodded his head in agreement. "Auntie is right, so I prepared an initial investment of over 10 billion. What? The husband and wife seemed to have springs under their butts as they both jumped up from the sofa and exclaimed in unison. 10 billion, Tang Jing, don't joke around." Shi Mingqin frowned and criticized, "Young man, you can't bite off more than you can chew. Even more so, you can't carelessly boast as it has no practical use." She thought in her heart that this was a joke. "Did you think your family printed money? 10 billion, not $100, how could it be so easy to raise?" Fang Chonghua had worked hard for half his life to amass a few hundred million, and this was after adding in the fixed assets. Even if she was beaten to death, she would not believe that Tang Jing, who was still living in a small broken house half a year ago, would have over 10 billion. This was just like a lunatic's dream. Fang Chonghua nodded his head in agreement with his wife's words and sincerely said, "I know you have great ambitions and this is very hard to come by, but the road must be walked step by step so that you won't fall." Tang Jing completely agreed with his advice and said, "Uncle and Auntie are both right, so this 10 billion is just an initial investment. Afterwards we will look at the results, and if the results are good we will add more in the future. Moreover, after investing this 10 billion, there will be quite a bit of profit and it should be enough to smoothly carry out this business plan. Didn't I tell you to stop joking around? Is there any meaning in bragging like this?" Shi Mingqin angrily reprimanded. Fang Shishir also didn't know much about Tang Jing's specific situation. She hurriedly signaled him with her eyes, took her mother's arm and advised, "Mom, don't do business. Tang Jing's idea is still very good." "Even if his idea is good, he can't say it like that. Does he really think that money floats down from the sky?" Shi Mingqin complained. Tang Jing shrugged and said, "The money didn't come from nowhere. I found a way to earn it. I believe you will see the results soon." Shi Mingqin was about to retort a few more times when she saw her husband's expression change. Fang Chonghua was not a stupid person, and seeing Tang Jing's solemn vow, after careful consideration, he could not help but half believe and half doubt. "Tang Jing, are you serious?" "Of course it's true. Why would I lie to you?" Fang Chonghua solemnly asked. "Then where did you get the money?" "I auctioned off a few things to raise the money. Around 10 billion, I have already given it to someone else to operate," Tang Jing casually said. His tone was very relaxed, as if it was not 10 billion but only 100 yuan. Even though Fang Chonghua could be considered a millionaire, in the face of such a large amount of money, he could not remain so calm. "What did you auction off for it to be worth so much money?" Shi Mingqin rushed to ask. She also gradually realized that Tang Jing didn't seem to be spouting nonsense, but she also found it hard to believe. Because this meant that Tang Jing, who she originally thought was a pauper, was much richer than her family. He was simply a rich husband. "Just a few small things," Tang Jing half-heartedly said. Since even the ghost realm noticed the matter of the life-continuing pill, then it would be best if this matter did not spread. Seeing that Tang Jing was not willing to speak in detail, Fang Chonghua did not force him. However, his heart was already in turmoil as he pondered just what could be worth such a large amount of money. Shi Mingqin's eyes began to shine as she stared at Tang Jing as if she was staring at a gold ingot. She impatiently asked, "You said that you gave this money to someone else to operate. How can you be so careless? With such a large amount of money, do you think that other people won't run away with it?" Tang Jing confidently said, "Of course not, I trust them. With such a large amount of money, how could a normal person bear it? Even if you trusted them before, you cannot expect to trust them in the future. This is not good, this money must be managed by someone close to you," Shi Mingqin said without stopping. "I am busy with school and other matters. I don't have time to manage business matters. Moreover, this is not something I am good at, so I can't find anyone else." "Why can't you find anyone?" Shi Mingqin suddenly had an idea as she looked at her husband and said, "That's right, isn't your uncle the most suitable person?" Fang Chonghua was stunned as his heart fiercely jumped. If he was allowed to manage this money, then he really would be moved. This amount of money was bigger than any of his previous business plans. As a businessman, participating in such a large business plan would undoubtedly give him a sense of accomplishment. In addition, his company was already in a financial crisis. If he could cooperate with Tang Jing's company, then he would be able to rise from the dead. However, Fang Chonghua still had his own reservations and could not be overjoyed after hearing these words. He purposely glared at his wife and complained, "This is his money, so of course he is the one making the decision. Moreover, since he gave it to someone else, then he must have trusted them. If he goes back on his words like this, then what will others think of him?" "That's right, little Zheng, who did you give this money to?" "Sister Mu Lin Huan Fire Phoenix." Fang Chonghua was not unfamiliar with Lin Huan Fire Phoenix. He also knew that these people from the underworld had pledged their allegiance to Tang Zheng. However, he did not know much about this Sister Mu. "Who is this Mu?" "Mu Hongyan." "Mu Hongyan?" Fang Chonghua exclaimed and asked in bewilderment, "Which Mu Hongyan is it?" "So she works for Dianan's Long family." "Dianan's Long family's Mu Hongyan?" Fang Chonghua sucked in a breath of cold air. "It's actually her. Why did you dig her out? She is a famous business genius. At such a young age, she has been in charge of the Long family's huge business empire. These past few months she has not shown her face. There are rumors that she and the Long family have fallen out. I never thought that she would actually work for you." This was more of a shock to Fang Chonghua than the 10 billion yuan investment. After all, Mu Hongyan was not someone who could be invited with money. She was the daughter-in-law of Dianan's Long family. Immediately, Fang Chonghua stared at Tang Zheng as if he wanted to completely see through him. However, no matter how he looked, other than his temperament being completely different from before, there was nothing special about him. Tang Zheng could understand the other's shock. He faintly smiled and said, "It's just a coincidence." Shi Mengqin did not understand Mu Hongyan. Moreover, hearing her husband praise another woman, she was somewhat unhappy in her heart and said, "What's the use of being strong? After all, she's an outsider. Moreover, you're also not bad. How can you feel ashamed?" Fang Chonghua solemnly stared at his wife and said, "My little bit of ability is not worth mentioning in the eyes of the other party. There is no way to compare them. If you let others hear this, you will only become a joke. Do you understand?" Shi Mengqin had never seen her husband praise someone so much. She could not help but understand that this woman must have real ability. She nodded her head and did not refute. "With her help, you can indeed sit back and relax." Fang Chonghua sighed, but he was somewhat disappointed. If he could participate in Tang Zheng's plan, then it would indeed be something to be excited about. However, now that there was Mu Hongyan, he was embarrassed to take the initiative to volunteer. After all, he was an elder. If he took the initiative to volunteer to a junior, he would not be able to wipe away his face. Tang Zheng's eyes flashed as he saw through the other's thoughts and said, "Uncle, if you are interested, then come and help me." "All right." Fang Chonghua's eyes lit up as he blurted out. However, he instantly realized that he had lost his composure and was incomparably embarrassed. Tang Zheng, however, did not treat it as a big deal and said, "With you participating, then I am even more relieved. It is truly my fortune." Fang Chonghua gave a gratified smile. This Tang Zheng really knew how to do things, and even more so, he was able to ease his embarrassment with a single sentence. Shi Mengqin, on the other hand, was somewhat resentful. How did her husband become Tang Zheng's subordinate in the blink of an eye? Wasn't this a mess? In any case, we will be a family in the future. Moreover, our business plan also includes real estate. Uncle, why don't you cooperate with your real estate company and mine? Everyone can develop together and earn money together. As for the specific situation, you have to discuss it with Sister Mu. Fang Chonghua truly felt grateful to the point of tears. This was truly a case of someone handing him a pillow when he wanted to sleep. Tang Zheng's words had reached the bottom of his heart and completely solved his urgent situation. Seeing her boyfriend and father happily chatting, Fang Shishir was also incomparably happy. This way, the barrier between her and Tang Zheng would be completely removed. Only Martial did not say a word. He coldly looked at Tang Zheng and silently cursed. "You can be so good to people, why can't you be a little better to master and mistress? Ingrate." Martial was originally prepared to be a burden to cause trouble for Tang Zheng, but he did not expect that the two people of the Fang family would be so easy to coax. After seeing so much money, they did not have any principles and were directly bought over by Tang Zheng. This meal was enjoyed by both the guests and the host. Shi Mengqin's face lit up with joy and a smile blossomed on her face. Fang Chonghua and Tang Zheng drank to their heart's content. In the end, they became drunk and hugged Tang Zheng's shoulders. They almost called out to the two brothers, but in the end, Shi Mengqin chased them back to their room to sleep. When Tang Zheng entered Fang Shishir's room, Shi Mengqin pretended not to see and allowed the young couple to kiss each other inside. Of course, this was still broad daylight and there were people outside. They could not do such intimate actions without restraint. In the end, Tang Zheng's evil fire was ignited and he was suspended in the air to be tortured. Seeing that it was already late, in order to avoid any mishaps, Tang Zheng could only bid farewell and return home. Martial glanced at the ugly bulge on his pants and finally laughed. Chapter 554. Of course, Tang Zheng did not force his way into Martial's room. He could only continue to make do with the sofa in the living room. In the dead of the night he was completely awake. This was because tonight he was going to consume the Dragon Yuan Dan to increase his power. The newly refined Dragon Yuan Dan did not have that strong of a medicinal effect, so he wanted to test if he could safely consume it. He calmed himself down and got rid of all distracting thoughts. He sat down cross-legged and swallowed a Dragon Yuan Dan. The moment the Dragon Yuan Dan slid down his throat, it exploded and turned into a ball of energy that rushed towards his 8 extraordinary meridians. Tang Zheng had already prepared a plan to deal with it. He multitasked and circulated the ancient Clear Heaven Scroll, the chaotic Vajra spell and the Dragon God method. The 3 types of cultivation techniques began to circulate in their own mysterious paths, and the genuine qi surged like a surging river. The energy of the Dragon Yuan Dan was quickly broken into pieces and transported to various parts of his body bit by bit. Thump. The energy flowed around the bones and seeped into them bit by bit. The snow-white bones started to glow with a metallic luster. The energy of a Dragon Yuan Dan was quickly refined, and his skin started to glow with a metallic luster. In the night he looked like a bronze man. The chaotic Vajra spell has improved again. Tang Zheng was overjoyed. Plus, during this period of time he had been cultivating the ancient Clear Heaven Scroll and the Dragon God method, but he had neglected to cultivate the chaotic Vajra spell. He never thought that the energy of the Dragon Yuan Dan would be so beneficial to tempering his body. The chaotic Vajra spell required continuous tempering of the body in order to allow the skin and bones to become abnormally strong. Back then, in the 10,000 huge mountains, he had undergone the tempering of the Witch Clan's secret medicine, and then underwent the tempering of the magma in the Sacred Grounds cave, which was why he had reached the Copper Skin realm. In the past few months, the chaotic Vajra spell had not improved at all. At this moment he discovered the miraculous use of the Dragon Yuan Dan and could not help but be overjoyed. This was the energy of the Dragon Yuan Dan tempering the body. Originally, the chaotic Vajra spell required external tempering in order to reach the Copper Skin realm. However, once one reached this realm, the next stage would be the Iron Bones. However, the bones could not be tempered from the outside, and could only be tempered from the inside of the body. This required enough energy to temper the bones from the inside of the body. In the past, the energy of the Dragon Yuan pill was too strong. Every time he took it, his body would explode and he would die. How could he have the mood to temper his bones? Having figured this out, Tang Zheng couldn't wait to consume another Dragon Yuan pill. Most of the energy just now was used to temper his bones, which meant that the energy contained in the new Dragon Yuan Dan was much smaller and was within his control. Whoosh. The energy of the Dragon Yuan pill continued to temper the bones. The metallic luster on the bones turned from light to dark and finally turned golden. When all the bones in his body had been tempered once, he felt that his body had become countless of times stronger. The chaotic Vajra spell had also increased by a level, reaching the 2nd level, Iron Bones. Now, not only could ordinary external forces not harm his skin, they could not even do anything to his bones. His resistance to attacks had increased exponentially. He really wanted to find someone to stab him with a sword to test his body's resistance. Since there's a ready-made candidate, I'll use her to test my chaotic Vajra spell. She also hates me to the core, so I'll give her this chance to vent her anger. He flipped over and stood up, knocking on Wu's door. Who? The armed police asked cautiously. Me, are you not asleep yet? What's the matter? Since you haven't slept yet, get up. I have something to talk to you about. Tang Zheng said. Not long later, Wu opened the door and walked out, looking suspiciously at the energetic Tang Zheng, especially since there was still a layer of metallic luster on his skin, which was obviously not there before. Wu looked at him in surprise and asked, "What the hell are you doing now? I know you're very angry with me. I'm a magnanimous person, so I'll give you a chance to vent your anger," Tang Zheng said while beaming. Wu looked at him suspiciously, not knowing what he meant by that. Seeing that he did not understand, Tang Zheng explained, "Let's find a place to spar. I won't retaliate and will let you attack me." Wu Xiuqi raised her eyebrows. She felt that his request, which was almost masochistic, was inconceivable, but she immediately felt relieved. "Since you took the initiative to be cheap, then don't blame me." "Alright, where are we going?" "Let's go downstairs." Tang Jing walked to the window and jumped down from the 10-story building. He was like a big bird, hiding in the night and not being discovered by anyone. After he landed more than 10 meters, the tip of his foot suddenly tapped on the wall, and his falling speed increased by a bit. Seeing that he was about to land on the ground, the tip of his foot tapped on the windowsill of a house, removing most of the force. He landed steadily, lifting heavy as if it was light, and did not make the slightest sound. Wu followed closely behind like a shadow and landed on the ground. However, she did not lift heavy as if it was light, and made quite a bit of noise when she landed. Tang Jing pointed to a small forest next to the district and flew over. Only an afterimage could be seen flashing across the night sky. He flipped over the wall of the district and landed in the small forest. Wu's face was strange because she knew that she was unable to reach Tang Jing's level. She felt helpless and unreconciled with his speed of improvement. Back then, her cultivation was much higher than his. How could she be inferior to him now? She could not help but feel a sense of powerlessness and frustration in her heart, but in an instant, her eyes became firm and she chased after him. This time he had to give Tang Jing a good look and vent his anger for his master and mistress. The night was like water and the small forest was pitch black. Only the occasional bit of moonlight that penetrated through the clouds allowed people to clearly distinguish their surroundings. The two of them had outstanding eyesight and were not affected by the darkness. They stood facing each other. "Use this blade to attack me. I won't fight back," Tang Jing said as he handed Wu a large blade. Wu weighed the large blade in his hand. It was indeed a sharp blade that shone with a cold light. She looked at him in bewilderment and asked again, "You really want me to attack you? If you pass this village, you won't have this shop anymore. If you want to attack me in the future, it won't be easy." Tang Jing provoked. "Since you're asking for trouble, then I'll help you." Wu snorted, and with a whoosh, the broadsword slashed towards Tang Jing's chest. Bang! Tang Jing was forced back by the strong force. A crack appeared on his jacket, and his slightly golden skin was revealed. However, there was no blood, nor was there a wound. Martial looked at this scene in shock. She had only used 30% of her strength in this slash, but she did not expect Tang Jing to not resist at all. After eating the slash, he was completely unharmed. Wu also knew that there were some people in the martial arts world who practiced martial arts and boasted that they had copper skin and iron bones. However, she knew that many people were just randomly bragging. If they really slashed with a large blade, they would still have to dodge. Furthermore, if they were not killed, they would still lose half their lives. However, Tang Jing was obviously different from those fake masters. He really used his body to resist the blade. "No matter what kind of martial arts you cultivate, eat my second blade. Let's see if you will still be unscathed." Wu rushed forward a few steps and chopped down with the broadsword. The broadsword light lit up with a demonic red light in the darkness. Tang Jing's pupils constricted as he recognized that this was the mental cultivation method of the roaring flame blade. Normally, her hands would be used as a blade, but at this moment, her inner strength was completely attached to the blade. It was as if the blade was burning, and it was much more powerful than the broadsword itself. Tang Jing did not retreat. He bent his knee backwards and supported his body. Seeing the burning broadsword approaching, he puffed out his chest. Bang! Tang Jing slid backwards, creating a gully on the ground. In the end, he broke a tree and fell to the ground with a loud bang. Wu was startled. This time she had used 90% of her strength. The power of this blade was enough to split open stones. Only then did she suddenly remember that she had used such a ruthless blade out of anger. Would Tang Jing be split in half by him? If that was really the case, then she would not be able to answer to her master and mistress. She threw away the broadsword and hurriedly rushed over, crying out in shock, "Tang Jing, how are you?" Tang Jing laid flat on the ground. The taste of this blade was not good at all. A bright red mark appeared on his chest. His clothes had been completely torn apart by the broadsword, revealing his hard chest. Fortunately, there was no blood and it did not cut through his skin. Wu looked at this scene with a dumbstruck expression and said, "I have such a powerful blade, yet you are still safe and sound?" She had always been confident in her own strength, but when she saw Tang Jing's heaven-defying ability to resist attacks, she could not help but feel a deep sense of powerlessness. Tang Jing did not look as good as he looked on the surface. Although he had copper skin and iron bones, his body still felt pain. After withstanding such a powerful attack, the muscles on his chest were almost torn apart, and the pain of his bones falling apart almost caused him to collapse. At this moment, the innate qi crazily surged in his meridians, trying to calm the heart-wrenching pain. The energy of the dragon Yuan Dan that had not been completely refined also became restless, fusing with the surging innate qi, turning into a wild horse that recklessly galloped in his meridians. Gradually, his body became incomparably hot, like a large furnace. His skin, which was originally suffused with a metallic luster, turned fiery red, and his entire body seemed to be on fire. Damn, this is bad. I still underestimated the energy of the dragon Xuanhuan. I originally thought that there would be no problems after tempering my bones, but I didn't expect that the remaining energy would still be so powerful. Taking advantage of my weakness, it actually detonated my pure yang energy. Tang Jing did not know whether to laugh or cry. He had underestimated his opponent too much, especially during this period of time when the pure yang energy was extremely quiet, causing him to overlook this fatal flaw. This time the pure yang energy had exploded. What should he do? This was not a joke. He already felt that his body was so hot that he could not stand it anymore. The dew on the grass around him was evaporated by his heat. Hey, what's wrong with you? You were the one who told me to attack you, so you can't blame me, Martial said. He supported himself with both hands on the ground and stood up with great difficulty. He clenched his teeth and walked into the small district without saying a word. However, the wall that he could walk on as if it was flat ground had now become an insurmountable mountain that he could not cross. If you want to go home, I'll take you back. Martial supported him in panic, and with a tap of her toes, she was about to jump into the small district. However, Tang Jing smelled a fragrance at the tip of his nose, and an unending stream of pure yin energy was transmitted from between the two's skin. It was like a drug addict who had encountered drugs, and his wolf was instantly submerged. His entire body became incomparably hot, and his hands immediately hugged her slender waist. It was unknown where he got the strength from, but he grabbed Martial's clothes and tore them apart. With a ripping sound, Martial's chest was torn open, and her snow-white skin was exposed. Immediately, Tang Jing's eyes turned red, and like a wild beast, he pounced forward. Martial only had time to scream before she was pushed to the ground. Tang Jing, you hooligan, you're courting death. Martial's palm slapped his shoulder, but he was completely unaware of it. He only wanted to rub each other into the other's body. Moreover, his entire body was burning hot like a branding iron. Chapter 555. Martial finally understood Tang Jing's situation and stopped trying to push him away. She remembered her master's instructions. Staying by Tang Jing's side was to prevent the eruption of pure yang energy. Now, wasn't it time for her to use her skills? Recalling the charming scene in the 10,000 huge mountains, her heart skipped a beat as a hot and dry feeling assaulted her heart. With the sound of silk tearing, Martial's clothes were torn open again. The white scenery immediately entered Tang Jing's eyes, causing his blood to boil. He increased the strength in his hands and firmly fixed Martial in place. Martial bit her lips, hesitated for a moment, and finally gave up resisting. The increasingly strong feeling in her heart caused her entire body to go limp. With a strong push from Tang Jing, she was completely lying on the ground, her clothes tattered, and the scenery was half covered and half exposed. However, she did not feel cold because Tang Jing was like a big furnace, causing the surrounding air to heat up. Moreover, no one came to this small forest in the middle of the cold night. She opened her eyes and allowed him to do whatever he wanted. Last time, Tang Jing fell into a coma, so she took the initiative. This time, Tang Jing fell into madness but did not faint, giving her a completely different feeling. That strong beast-like masculine aura caused her breathing to involuntarily quicken. Her cheeks flushed red like a ripe apple. Not long after, the two naked figures rolled on the ground, hugging each other tightly, as if they wanted to completely merge into each other's bodies. Martial could not help but gently gasp for breath, adding a different kind of scenery to the small forest. The battle continued for a long time. Tang Jing's bravery was beyond Martial's imagination. When she could not take it anymore and begged for mercy, Tang Jing did not seem to hear it. However, she felt his body temperature dropping and the fiery red color on his skin dimming bit by bit. Martial clenched his teeth and stared at him bitterly, thinking, if I didn't want to save you, why would I be bullied like this? You hooligan bastard. Suddenly, everything returned to normal. Martial laid on the ground, breathing out like orchids. Her entire body was sore and weak, without a trace of strength. Her skin had a delicate and beautiful crimson color. Tang Jing gasped for breath as he lay on her chest, dripping with sweat. His skin had already returned to normal, and his fiery red eyes gradually regained their calm. He slowly lowered his head and saw the beauty beneath him. Suddenly, it was as if a basin of cold water had been poured over him. He shivered. He had actually done that to her, and it was by force. Holy sh*t, the pure yang energy is erupting. Why am I such a beast? He wanted to cry but had no tears. This damned pure yang energy had erupted without any warning. He had done this completely out of instinct. Although he had silently cursed during the day that he wanted to break into Marshall's room and force himself on her, now that it had really happened, she was at a loss for what to do. With Marshall's temper, wouldn't he be dead for sure? She would castrate him first, then peel off his skin and pull out his tendons. He hurriedly crawled up from her body and subconsciously placed his hands on her chest. Immediately, two breathtaking softness fell into his palms, causing his heart to tremble. Wu Jiao let out a cry as her eyes widened. Tang Jing hurriedly explained, "I'm sorry, this was not intentional. I had no intention of doing it just now. It was completely out of instinct to save myself." Seeing him lose his head out of fear, Marshall also calmed down. She once again returned to her ice-cold appearance and said, "You yourself said it was instinct. It can be seen how bad your nature is." Tang Jing did not care about these words and said, "I promise there will never be a next time. As the saying goes, things do not happen more than 3 times. He had already done it with her twice. If there really was a third time, he really did not dare to imagine what it would be like. Marshall did not believe his promise. However, seeing him lose his composure, a thought appeared in her mind. It seems that he is quite cute like this. But she immediately threw this absurd thought out of her mind. She only had sex with him because of Master's orders. There is absolutely no other reason. Just now, my situation was very dangerous. After all, you saved me. You have saved my life. If you have any requests, I will definitely satisfy them." Since things had already come to this, he could only do his best to make up for it. Tang Jing was not the kind of person who would pull up his pants and not admit it. That kind of man was too irresponsible and was no different from an animal. Marshall had an idea and asked, "You really want me to make a request?" Tang Jing nodded his head heavily, "Of course." "All right, forgive Master and Mistress," Marshall said. "Forgive them?" Tang Jing was startled. He did not expect her to make such a request. "If you don't agree, right? I think you are just a person who goes back on his words. Leave my body and scram," Marshall angrily shouted. Tang Jing was hesitant. Seeing her angry appearance, he advised, "Make another request." "This is my request. Whether you agree or not is up to you," Wu snappily said as she grabbed her clothes and put them on. Unfortunately, her clothes had already been torn apart, revealing her body. It was faintly discernible, which was even more enticing than not wearing any clothes. She took large strides towards the small district. She wanted to jump over the wall, but when her toes touched the ground, her legs went limp and she staggered towards the wall. Tang Jing cried out in alarm. He immediately rushed over and hugged her. With a tap of his foot, the two of them flew over the wall and landed firmly on the ground. Tang Jing tightly hugged her slender waist. His palm felt a soul-stirring softness. Marshall's face flushed red. She pushed him away and scolded, "I don't want you to be hypocritical. In any case, you have a heart of stone. You are not even willing to forgive your own parents. Although they are my biological parents, they did not fulfill any of their parental responsibilities. How can I not be angry?" Tang Jing retorted. "That's because you didn't have the chance before. Since you have the chance now, why can't you give them a chance and let them fulfill some of their responsibilities? Is there a need for you to beat them to death like this?" Marshall's aura was not weak as he argued with reason. Tang Jing was silent. He indeed did not give them a chance to fulfill their responsibilities. Could it be that he was too cruel? "Master was worried about your safety and specially sent me to stay by your side to protect you. Isn't this concern? How can you turn a blind eye to it?" Marshall chattered on. "If it wasn't for me just now, would you still be standing here alive?" Tang Jing glanced at her and admitted that she was right. If it wasn't for her, he would have been in danger. So, in reality, it was Wu Junshan who saved his life. Seeing that Tang Jing's will was wavering, Marshall struck while the iron was hot and said, "As long as you promise to give them a chance, I will forgive you this time." Tang Jing's heart moved. The other party had already given in. If he continued to persist, wouldn't it be too heartless and cold? "All right, I'll promise you. I'll give them a chance. But if you want me to forgive them immediately, that's impossible." Tang Jing finally compromised. Marshall was overjoyed. Although this result was not perfect, at least there was progress. He nodded and said, "At least you have some responsibility. Let's go home. If the security patrol sees us, we'll lose a lot." Tang Jing pointed at his exposed skin and reminded, "How can I leave from the main entrance like this? Moreover, there are surveillance cameras at the bottom of the building." Marshall fiercely glared at him and asked. The corner of Tang Jing's mouth curled up and said, "It's nothing, watch me." After saying that, he picked her up by the waist, and with a tap of his foot on the ground, he leaped up a few meters into the air, and then lightly tapped on the wall a few times, and the two of them soared up. Fortunately, it was the middle of the night, otherwise this scene would definitely attract many people to stop and watch. Wu did not scream, she was just a little surprised that he would use such a method to glare at him, but he turned a blind eye to it. In midair, she subconsciously hugged his body, and in a trance she felt as if they were a pair of intimate lovers. She subconsciously shook her head and hurriedly got rid of this absurd thought. She adjusted her rapid breathing and quietly felt this different feeling. Since she was young, although she had come into contact with a lot of people of the opposite sex, they were all disciples of the martial sect. They were all in awe of her, the sect master's disciple, and did not dare to offend her like this. Ever since she had that intimate relationship with Tang Zheng in the 10,000 huge mountains, her heart began to change. Originally, the feeling between men and women was like that, but this time the feeling was completely different, as if she had peeked into another wonderful world. At this moment, lying in Tang Zheng's arms, a strong sense of security filled her heart. She knew that this arm was a strong safe harbor, and any wind or rain would be blocked outside. Suddenly, a complicated thought arose in her heart. She could not help but be a little envious of Fang Shishir, because she would often lean on this arm and ignore all the wind and rain outside. Bang! Tang Zheng's feet lightly landed on the ground. Wu Ruming woke up and immediately suppressed the complicated thoughts in his heart. He jumped down from her arms and rushed into the bedroom as if he was flying. Seeing her fleeing in panic, Tang Zheng smiled bitterly and rubbed his nose. Was he that scary? It was as if she couldn't wait to escape from the claws of a devil. He shook his head, not bothering with these messy thoughts. He calmed his mind and carefully investigated the situation in his body. After that dangerous scene just now, other than being intimate with her, his gains were not small either. Other than the breakthrough of the chaotic Vajra spell, his cultivation had also reached the 7th stage of the Anidia realm after the final moment of the harmony of yin and yang. Looking at the surging innate qi in his body, Tang Zheng was overjoyed. The Dragon Yuan Dan was indeed useful, and he had taken too much of a risk previously. It seemed that he could not take 2 pills at once in the future. 1 pill at a time was the most suitable. Not only could it increase his innate qi, it could also temper his body, and it could also prevent the eruption of the pure yang energy. Chapter 556. Train Station. During the Spring Festival there was a huge flow of people. On the 3rd day of the new year, there were already migrant workers traveling far away by car. Tang Zheng and Martial stood at the exit of the station, looking at the bustling passengers walking out. Martial's tall and slender figure made the others pale in comparison, especially the few girls who avoided her from afar, because standing near her was too stressful. Martial was very tall with a pair of straight and slender legs. Her figure was comparable to that of a professional model, and her beautiful face, all of which were quite lethal weapons. In any case, many people were secretly looking at her. Martial eyes looked at his nose looked at his heart and was indifferent to all of this. Just like Tang Zheng, he also looked at the exit, curious as to who exactly he was waiting for. Suddenly the crowd surged. The train arrived at the station and the passengers exited. Tang Zheng's eyes widened as his gaze wandered through the crowd. Suddenly, his pupils constricted as he locked onto a group of people and quickly walked forward to welcome them. Wu followed closely behind and looked in his direction. Immediately she saw her target, and it was someone she knew, Yi Yuan. Beside Yi Yuan were 20 to 30 powerful clansmen, and the nearby tourists all avoided them. It was obvious that this group of natural warriors was emitting an aura that no one could enter. Aura. Tang Zheng and the rest also saw Tang Zheng. They quickly walked forward with great momentum, and then stood in front of Tang Zheng at the same time, all of them standing straight like javelins as if they wanted to pierce through the heavens. Everyone looked sideways, guessing who this group of people were. The group of people bowed towards Tang Zheng at the same time, and respectfully called out, "Greetings, Lord Envoy." What? Lord Envoy? Many people rubbed their ears, thinking that they had heard wrongly. Could it be that they were filming a movie? But there were no cameras around. Tang Zheng did not want to be surrounded by onlookers, so he immediately waved his hand and said, "No need to be so polite, let's get on the carriage and go back first." "Yes, sir." Everyone accepted the order in unison. Tang Zheng was helpless. His prestige in the shaman tribe had already been deeply rooted in his bones, and now he was probably even more prestigious than the elders of the shaman tribe. It would not be easy to make them not follow the rules and salute him. However, what made him very gratified was that the strength of this group of people had obviously improved a lot. Back then, They were restricted by a mysterious restriction in the 100,000 mountains and could not practice cultivation methods. But now they were all cultivators, and the weakest was at the foundation establishment stage, which was equivalent to an acquired warrior. The strength of these 30 Hotian warriors could not be underestimated. Back then, Tang Zheng had taken a long time to reach the foundation establishment stage, but these witch warriors were able to reach this stage so quickly, it was enough to show the innate talent of the witch tribe. In fact, there was a reason for this. Although the shamans were unable to cultivate in the past, they lived in the mountains all year round and had been tempered by the various secret medicines of the elders. Their strength was not weak and their bodies had long stored a huge amount of treasures. Amongst them, Yi Yuan's cultivation speed was the most terrifying. Right now, he had already reached the 9th stage of the foundation establishment stage, and was only a step away from the Enidia realm. Wu Yi looked at them suspiciously, not knowing why Tang Zheng had summoned all these people over with such great momentum. However, she was used to watching and listening less, so she just watched silently. The few of them boarded a bus and an off-road vehicle that they had prepared beforehand. Tang Zheng personally drove the off-road vehicle, causing Yi Yuan to be overwhelmed by the favor and almost not dare to sit on it. "Ah Yuan, it's been hard on you all the way," Tang Zheng said. Yi Yuan hurriedly said, "Lord Envoy, it's not hard for us. Everyone is too happy to see you again. The day before yesterday when we received your notice, we immediately set off and crossed the border. Because we did not have any identity and the inspection for taking a plane was too strict, taking a train was much easier, we snuck into the train station and took the train to Chongqing City. I wonder if this delayed Sir Envoy's plans?" Tang Jing laughed and said, "Don't delay, my matters are not that urgent, I did not expect you all to come so quickly." The elder was afraid that he would delay Lord Envoy's grand plan, so he urged us not to delay in the slightest. "Is the elder all right?" Yi Yuan's face revealed a look of joy and said, "Elder is very good, now that he has entered the fasting period. According to what Senior Tian Chanzi said, the potential that the elder has accumulated for most of his life has not completely erupted, so his cultivation in the future can only be higher." The corner of Tang Zheng's mouth raised and said, "Oh, then I really have to congratulate elder. Alright, how is Tian Chanzi's cultivation?" On the phone, he kept hemming and hawing, unwilling to talk about it in detail. Yi Yuan shook his head regretfully. "Senior Tian Chanzi's cultivation is unfathomable, he did not tell us, so we have no way of knowing." Tang Zheng said that this old fellow was still playing a game of secrecy with him. The next time he saw him he had to make things clear. This fellow used to be a cultivator of the Yuanying realm. He did not know when he would be able to completely recover his cultivation, and at that time, his side would be even stronger. However, although Tang Zheng could contact Tian Chanzi, if there was nothing important he would definitely not contact him. This was because he was afraid that if he contacted him too frequently, he would expose the other party's exact location. Now that technology was so advanced, if the mysterious power in his hands was completely investigated, it would not be good for him. However, this time he had allowed the witch clan to return to their country due to many considerations. Firstly, he needed people who were strong enough and trustworthy to stay by his side to deal with all kinds of possible dangers. Secondly, his identity as a cultivator had already been exposed, and the existence of the witch clan was no longer a secret. Since everyone knew about it, why not openly pull it out and let everyone see the strength of the witch clan in him? This way he would be able to shock the younger generation. This was his idea of benefiting from being big and strong. His strength was not only reflected in his business empire, but also in his martial strength. Not only was it a person but also the powerful martial strength in his hands. This way, in the future, if a small fry like the dragon group wanted to deal with him, they would have to weigh their own weight. Thirdly, the sorcerer tribe lived in the mountains and forests all year round, isolated from the rest of the world. Although they had been training in the mortal world during this period of time, how could a small border country be compared to a big country like Wuxia? In their own country they would receive more challenges. This way they could quickly strengthen their foundation and increase their strength. Aren't you afraid of becoming the target of public criticism when you let so many cultivators appear at the same time? Wu finally could not help but ask. The corner of Tang Zheng's mouth curled up and he laughed. "In any case, I am already in high demand, who knows how many pairs of eyes are staring at me. Since that's the case, then let's play a big game and let them see more cultivators." Moreover, the martial sect is in chaos, so they should not have the time to care about the cultivators. The internal strife in the martial sect had undoubtedly given him a chance for the cultivators to take a breather. Wu shook his head. "You are too risky, you forgot what Mistress warned you. They suspect that there is another mysterious power behind the martial sect in Li Palace. This power has never appeared. I'm afraid they don't have much of a good impression of cultivators. Tang Zheng's heart trembled, then he shook his head. If we blindly fear wolves and tigers, then what great things can we do? Sometimes we can't have too many misgivings, we have to take advantage of the momentum and see how far we can go. Frisky. Wu curled his lips and commented, obviously not agreeing with Tang Zheng's point of view. Hearing that, Yi Yuan firmly stood on Tang Zheng's side and said sonorously, "We which clan warriors will follow Lord Envoy's lead, we believe in Lord Envoy's decision." Stubborn. Martial said disapprovingly. Thinking about that mysterious and unfathomable power, Tang Zheng frowned and asked, "Aren't there 3 big mysterious organizations in this world? Martial Sect, Li Palace and Azure Dragon Palace. Why have I never heard you mention the Azure Dragon Palace?" Wu's expression changed slightly as he said in a deep voice, "The Azure Dragon Palace is the most mysterious of the 3 great organizations. I heard from Master that even he did not know much about the secrets of the Azure Dragon Palace, and only heard from word of mouth that there was such an organization in this world that was as famous as the Martial Sect and the Li Palace." Tang Zheng could not help but open his eyes wide. There was actually such an inconceivable thing in this world. Even Wu Junshan did not know about the Azure Dragon Palace that was as famous as the Martial Sect. Why did it sound like a lie? But looking at Wu's expression, it was obvious that he was not lying. Could it be that the Azure Dragon Palace was really so mystical that it could escape the eyes of the Martial Sect? Could it be that this Azure Dragon Palace disappeared a long time ago? Tang Zheng let his imagination run wild. Impossible. Although no one from the Azure Dragon Palace has appeared before, this organization definitely exists. It's just that it's too mysterious. Maybe it's hidden in the city or maybe it's right beside you and me. Tang Zheng laughed out loud. How was this possible? A mysterious organization existing in the streets was like a fantasy. The hardest thing to keep in this world was a secret. How could such a large organization hide? This was definitely a great question. Now that there is the Azure Dragon Palace, the Martial Sect and the mysterious power behind the Li Palace, this is truly a competition for supremacy. More and more people are coming on stage. Tang Zheng could not help but laugh as he teased. The powers are intricate and complicated, then as the target of everyone's eyes, you are in more danger. You should be careful, but you did the opposite and made such a big fuss. I really don't understand you. Wu said doubtfully. Tang Zheng shook his head and said, I was too careful in the past. As the saying goes, a good horse is ridden by people and a good person is bullied by people. From the matter of the dragon group, I finally understood that in order to survive in this world, only by becoming strong enough and having the strength to make others fear me will I try my best to avoid trouble. I don't cause trouble, but I'm even more afraid of trouble. Tang Zheng's words were resolute and decisive, sonorous and powerful, like a heavy hammer striking Martial's heart. In a trance, she seemed to have seen her master. In the past, when her master was in the Martial Sect, he was also this powerful. This kind of aura was fascinating. Hey, if you look at me like that, I'll be embarrassed. Tang Zheng glanced at her and teased mischievously. Martial coldly snorted and said with a false heart, I want to see how you deal with the trouble you cause in the future. Tang Zheng shrugged his shoulders indifferently. Chapter 557. Tang Zheng's face darkened as he stared at the entrance of the ordinary balance courtyard. A large group of people were blocking the entrance with sticks and machetes in their hands. They were constantly pounding on the door trying to rush in. But the door was tightly shut, making it impossible for them to succeed. Ring ring ring. Tang Zheng's phone rang. Young Master Tang, there's a large group of people causing trouble at the ordinary balance courtyard. Lin Hu's anxious voice sounded. I saw them. I'm right outside the door. Do you know who they are? Tang Zheng asked calmly. I saw a few familiar faces in the crowd. I've seen them before in the provincial capital, Jade Sand. They're people from the Jade Sand Path. Lin Hu analyzed. People from the Jade Sand Path? Tang Zheng frowned. He had always been in the ordinary balance courtyard and hadn't gone to Jade Sand to cause trouble. Why would people from the Jade Sand Path block his door? Don't worry. With me here, these people won't be able to cause any big waves. Tang Zheng said. Yes, then we'll open the door immediately and meet you. In fact, the guards of the ordinary balance courtyard had been cleared out in the past few days. The security of the ordinary balance courtyard was in a state of emptiness. Fortunately, no one dared to cause trouble in the ordinary balance courtyard, so it was safe and sound. But he didn't think that the people from the Jade Sand Path would rashly come. Lin Hu originally wanted to talk to them, but these people didn't have good intentions. These people didn't want to talk to him at all. Seeing that the situation wasn't good, In order to prevent the guests and staff of the ordinary balance courtyard from being hurt, he made a prompt decision to close the door. Hearing that young Master Tang was outside the door, Lin Hu finally let out a sigh of relief and hurriedly comforted the guests. Tang Jing had already gotten out of the car. The 30 witch warriors also got out of the car one after another. They curiously looked at the crowd surrounding the door and making a big fuss. Although these people were very loud, they were only shouting loudly. They kept slamming and pushing the door trying to break in. However, the door was very sturdy and they couldn't break it in a short time. Tang Jing walked toward the door step by step. Suddenly his phone rang again. This time it wasn't Lin Hu but Fire Phoenix. Today, Fire Phoenix wasn't at the ordinary balance courtyard. Instead, she was inspecting the situation at several clubs. Unexpectedly, she also encountered troublemakers. Furthermore, all of their properties were attacked by unknown enemies. Without a doubt, these thugs were in cahoots with this group of people. It was truly a big deal. In the ordinary balance domain, it was impossible to find so many people who dared to oppose Tang Jing. Only the Jade Sands domain dared to be so unbridled. Crossing the river, I'll turn you into a drowned bug later, Tang Jing said with a gloomy face. The corner of Marshall's mouth hooked up. Looking at the thugs who didn't know that a great disaster was about to befall them, they couldn't help but feel sad for them. These people didn't even know the background of their opponents, yet they still dared to rashly charge forward. They were simply born to be cannon fodder. Marshall walked to the periphery of the crowd and patted the shoulder of a person who was shouting non-stop, saying, "Make way." That person turned his head and glared at Tang Jing, saying, "Brat, scram. Do you believe that I won't beat you up?" Tang Jing's thick eyebrows twitched as he sent out a slap. Pop. That person was like a spinning top, continuously spinning on the spot before finally crashing to the ground. The others immediately noticed the clues and turned their heads at the same time. They angrily stared at Tang Jing and roared, "Brat, where are you from? You dare to hit our people, are you looking for trouble?" Tang Jing looked at the other party and asked coldly, "Who sent you here? F***ck, you still dare to question me? I'll cut you to death." The other party punched. Tang Jing did not move at all. A big hand had already blocked in front of him, holding onto the fist, only to see the fist emitting a creaking sound, and then shrinking bit by bit at a speed visible to the naked eye. The other party immediately let out a scream like a pig being slaughtered. Yi Yuan turned a deaf ear to the scream and looked at Tang Jing inquiringly. Tang Jing said indifferently, "Since you don't want to speak, then there's no need to." Yi Yuan understood and waved to his clansmen. The group of people were like fierce tigers descending the mountain as they rushed over. Before the other party could even say a few words, he saw a group of people rushing in front of him. Without saying a word, they directly smashed their hammer-like fists onto the other party's body. This was a one-sided slaughter. Tang Jing was not interested in watching at all. He walked to the door and with a creak, the door opened. Lin Hu stood behind the door and behind him was a group of curious guests. When they saw the martial arts scene outside, they all widened their eyes. Especially since this was an overwhelming battle, there was no suspense at all. Those people were like wheat, being harvested by the Witch Clan warriors at lightning speed. The screams were earth-shattering and in contrast, none of the Witch Clan warriors made a single sound. They only had calm faces as if their opponents were really wheat, and the screams did not cause any ripples in their hearts. These guests could not help but tremble as a strong killing intent assaulted their faces. Even the slowest person could feel a different kind of iron-blooded valiance from these people. What kind of team was this? How could they be so strong? In the past, ordinary balance had never heard of such a strong team. Everyone guessed. But without a doubt, one thing was certain, and that was that these were Tang Jing's men. No wonder he had such great achievements at such a young age. Just these iron-blood warriors alone were enough for him to walk sideways in the ordinary balance. The battle ended very quickly. Then, the Witch Clan warriors ignored the enemy who had completely lost their fighting strength and could only scream in pain on the ground. They stood behind Tang Jing without saying a word, like a silent shadow, emitting a soul-stirring aura. "Lord Envoy, how should we deal with them?" Yi Yuan asked in a low voice. "Drag them away and throw them away. Don't block the door and affect business." Tang Jing said without batting an eyelid. "Yes." Yi Yuan accepted the order and gestured to the Witch Clan warriors. The Witch Clan warriors started to move, each of them dragging a few enemies as if they were dragging a dead dog, dragging them far away. Then, with a wave of their hands as if they were throwing a shot put, these people flew towards the bushes in the distance. The guests were flabbergasted. Not only was the fighting strength of this group of big men astonishing, their strength was also too great. They could see with their own eyes that many of them were holding onto 2 legs in one hand, and directly throwing 2 people flying. 2 people, 300 kilograms of weight, to them, seemed to be insignificant. This scene was too impactful. They had no choice but to re-evaluate Tang Zheng. This person was even more powerful than they had imagined. Many people had already secretly made up their minds that they would definitely not be enemies with him in the future. If they could cooperate with him, there would definitely be great benefits. At this point, the influence of the Dragon Group's harsh attack on Tang Zheng's industry gradually disappeared. "I'm sorry to disturb everyone's mood." Tang Zheng smiled at the crowd and said. Everyone immediately waved their hands and laughed. "Young Master Tang is too serious. Today we have a feast for our eyes. It should be our fortune to be able to enjoy such a good show." The others nodded in agreement. If they had not seen this scene with their own eyes, many people would not have been able to truly experience Tang Zheng's strength. If they were to do something stupid in the future, then the gains would not make up for the losses. Tang Zheng smiled and nodded, his gaze turning to a sports car by the roadside in the distance. Sports cars were not rare in the ordinary balanced courtyard, but this sports car had been parked by the side of the road ever since Tang Zheng got off the car, forming a stark contrast with the other cars parked in the parking lot. Although the glass of the sports car was blocked, Tang Zheng could still vaguely see that there was someone in the sports car. Thus he strode towards the sports car. Virum. The roar of the engine suddenly sounded as the sports car started. It roared like a wild beast and suddenly turned around, fleeing the way it came. The guests were disappointed, thinking that the one sitting in the sports car must be the leader. If it ran away just like that, then they would not know who the mastermind behind the scenes was. But how could Tang Zheng let the other party run away so easily? He coldly snorted and directly walked to a row of iron fences. He casually pulled out an iron rod from the soil. Under the suspicious gazes of the crowd, Tang Zheng roared, "Stop for me!" Whoosh! The iron rod left his hand like a sharp arrow and went straight to the sports car. "Wow!" The crowd immediately exclaimed. This scene was really beyond everyone's expectations. Tang Zheng actually used an iron rod to block an arrow. How could it catch up with the sports car that was like an arrow leaving the bow? While everyone was still doubting, the iron rod swept across the sky and caught up with the sports car. Bang! The high-speed sports car was pierced through by the iron rod, and the iron rod pierced deeply into the sports car. Then, with a creak, the sports car spun on the spot and finally, with a boom, it crashed into a big tree on the side of the road and stopped. Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air at the same time as they looked at Tang Zheng in shock. This attack was too powerful. How much strength did it require? Everyone's gazes shifted towards Tang Zheng's arm. This pair of arms that were no different from a normal person's actually contained such a powerful explosive force. It was truly terrifying. A heart-wrenching and lung-splitting scream came out from the sports car, and it was even screaming for help. "Capture him," Tang Zheng said indifferently. Yi Yuan's feet slipped, and like a gust of wind, he arrived in front of the sports car in the blink of an eye. He grabbed onto the deformed door and fiercely pulled, causing the metal door to creak, and then was directly torn off from the body of the sports car. A person was dragged out of the sports car by Yi Yuan like a dead dog, and then dragged all the way towards Tang Zheng. Boom! The sports car exploded, turning into a ball of flames that soared into the sky, shocking everyone to the point that their hearts trembled. Yi Yuan threw the captive heavily onto the ground. The other party was gasping for breath as he lay in front of Tang Zheng in a sorry state. Tang Zheng squatted down and grabbed the other party's hair. A familiar face appeared in front of his eyes. It's actually you." Tang Zheng was extremely surprised. Chapter 558. This person was Lei Jun, who had a conflict with Tang Zheng in the shopping mall back then. This time, he had received his father's orders and personally brought people to smash the place, taking the opportunity to vent the anger in his heart. Unexpectedly, enemies were on a narrow road. The enemy he had been painstakingly searching for had no news of him, but at this moment, the other party was standing in front of him alive. He was both surprised and happy. It was truly a case of wearing out iron shoes in a fruitless search, and obtaining it without any effort. That trace of fear just now vanished like smoke in thin air, as if he had been injected with chicken blood. He became incomparably fearful again. He stared at Tang Zheng restlessly and said, "Brat, so it's you. I've been looking for you for so long, but I haven't been able to find you. This time, don't even think about escaping. If you dare to offend me, I will make you die a miserable death." Tang Zheng snorted in disdain and said, "I think you don't understand the situation. Since that's the case, I'll let you understand the situation first." As soon as he finished speaking, Yi Yuan punched Lei Jun's stomach. Why, he immediately bent down and vomited acid, as if he was about to vomit out his gallbladder. He then fell to the ground and bent into the shape of a shrimp. You dare to hit me? Lei Jun pointed at Tang Zheng in disbelief. I'll hit you, what can you do? From what you said just now, you've been looking for me to take revenge, right? Since you haven't given up on me, then I won't let you off. Let's settle the old and new debts together. Tang Zheng's face gradually turned frosty. New debts and old debts, I should be the one settling them with you. If you treat me like this, my father will definitely not let you off. Lei Jun appeared fierce on the outside, and started to use his father to scare Tang Zheng. You want to compete with your father, right? I forgot to tell you, I hate people who rely on their father the most. I'm an idiot, and only by relying on my father can I give myself some courage. This kind of life, just thinking about it, is very sad. Tang Zheng said in disdain. Lei Jun's face flushed red as he gnashed his teeth in hatred. Since you want to compete with your father, then tell me, who exactly is your father? I also want to meet him. Tang Zheng asked curiously. My father is Wuxia's Lei Ming. Are you scared now? Lei Jun said proudly. In the past, whenever he met an opponent, as long as he mentioned his father's name, the opponent would be scared off. There were even people who would kneel down and beg for mercy. Every time this happened, he would enjoy the thrill of the reversal. But this time he was disappointed. Tang Zheng had no reaction to the name at all. Instead, he said to himself, who is Lei Ming? How come I've never heard of him? You've never heard of it before? Impossible. Lei Jun cried out in disbelief. Almost all the reputable people in the province knew of Thunder Cry's great name. This person actually said that he didn't know of him, it was too absurd. Tang Zheng curled his lips in disapproval and jokingly said, is your father so famous that I must have heard of him? Lei Jun was speechless. When Lin Hu heard the two words Lei Ming, his eyelids fiercely jumped. If it was in the past, he would definitely stay away from this level of people. He would even bow and bend his knees. But now, even if Lei Ming was powerful, but in Lin Hu's heart, he still couldn't be compared to young Master Tang. Young Master Tang, Lei Ming is the big brother of the Jade Sand Road's dragon head. He is a powerful character that can cause anyone in the province to tremble if they step on him. Lin Hu softly reminded Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng suddenly realized that the other side had a bit of background. But he and Lei Ming had no enmity in the past, so why would he send people to deal with him? However, this wasn't the main problem. Now that the other clubs were also under attack, so he had to first deal with the attack and then deal with the main culprit behind it. Tang Zheng grabbed Lei Jun's collar and lifted him up. His voice was stern as he said, since you've fallen into my hands, you better be obedient. Otherwise, I guarantee that even your father won't be able to save you. You will die a very, very miserable death. So now order your subordinates to stop attacking. If you dare to cause trouble in my territory, I will definitely make you suffer so much that you'll wish you were dead. Threatening me to submit? Then I won't. I want to see what you can do to me. Lei Jun said without fear. In his impression, normal people really didn't dare to touch him, especially those in the underworld. They were even more afraid of his father. Is that so? You asked for it. As his voice fell, Tang Zheng grabbed Lei Jun's arm and fiercely twisted it. Gotcha, the bones shattered, and a miserable shriek like that of a pig being slaughtered soared into the sky. Lei Jun's arm was twisted at a strange angle. F***ck, it hurts so much. You mother***er, I'm going to kill you. I'm going to kill your whole family. Lei Jun loudly shouted. Tang Zheng's face turned cold. In this life, the people he hated the most were those who threatened his family. He grabbed Lei Jun's shoulder and moved his fingers. Gotcha, the bones in Lei Jun's shoulder were all crushed. Immediately, Lei Jun's scream became louder and louder. In the end, it turned into a hoarse whimper. Large beads of sweat flowed down his cheeks. His facial muscles twisted because of the pain and his entire body trembled like a sieve. I'll listen to you, I'll listen to you. He finally hurriedly nodded his head. Tang Zheng nodded his head in satisfaction. Make the call quickly. My patience is limited. Otherwise, you won't be able to keep your other arm. Lei Jun hurriedly used his other hand to make a call, ordering his subordinates to stop attacking. When the guests saw this scene, many of them felt their legs go weak and almost fell to the ground. They all looked at Tang Zheng in disbelief, not knowing how he could be so calm at such a young age. The storm had come to an end, but it did not stop. Tang Zheng called out to Lin Hu to entertain the guests, then waved his hand, allowing Yi Yuan to escort Lei Jun into the carriage. Lei Jun was about to faint from the pain, he kept begging to be sent to the hospital, but Tang Zheng turned a deaf ear to him and asked, Why is your Lei family targeting me? I have no enmity with you, right? Lei Jun already understood that although Tang Jing looked kind, he was definitely not a good person. Thus, he did not dare to hide anything and betrayed Qin Lao like a bamboo tube spilling beans. Tang Jing's eyes flashed with a cold light as he muttered to himself, "So it's this old fellow. He really doesn't change his nature. Where is he now?" Tang Jing had the intention to kill Qin Lao. Since his opponent did not know what was good for him, and being remembered by such a person was not a good thing, he might as well cut the grass and get rid of the roots. At the same time, he could also test the attitude of the Song family. "Take me to see him." "Yes, no problem, but can you send me to the hospital first? I'm going to die of pain?" Lei Jun begged for mercy with snot and tears. He finally understood the pain of those people who had been stepped on by him in the past. "You wish." Of course, Tang Jing would not let the other party escape. He tapped the other party's body a few times with his finger, and the feeling that entered his heart actually eased a lot. Lei Jun looked at him in disbelief, not knowing what kind of method he was using. In fact, Lei Jun was also a martial artist, but he was not as good as Huang Xiang. Relying on his father, he ate, drank, and played all day long. He was ignorant and incompetent, and his martial arts were almost completely wasted. That was why he was so useless. At this moment, he placed his only hope on his father. Since these people wanted to find his father, he would wait for his father to personally deal with them, and then he would take revenge. Tang Jing did not care about his little thoughts. He suddenly remembered the celebrity called Lu Yanran, so he casually asked, "Wasn't there a celebrity with you last time? How is she?" A trace of anger flashed across Lei Jun's face. He gritted his teeth and said, "That bitch ran away. Damn, she really thinks she's so powerful. Next time when she comes back, I will definitely deal with her." She's a celebrity. Can you deal with her? So what if she's a celebrity? Nowadays there are so many celebrities with a price tag. As long as you have money, what kind of celebrity can't you play with? Lei Jun disagreed. Clearly he was speaking from his experience. In the past he had dealt with many so-called female celebrities. Tang Jing sighed inwardly. The entertainment circle was dirty and messy. Fortunately, Ling Er was in his company, so there wouldn't be such a foul atmosphere. But if anyone dared to have any ideas about Ling Er or force her to do something against her will, he would definitely stand up and not let them off easily. The two vehicles sped as they arrived at the highway in a short while and headed towards Jade Sand City. But when they reached the highway, Lin Hu chased after them. He knew Tang Jing's temper. Since Lei Jun dared to come here, then he would definitely not let this matter go. But the other party was Lei Ming after all. What if they couldn't get any benefits by coming to the other party's territory? Lin Hu could not afford to make any mistakes, so he hurriedly dealt with the matters of the ordinary balance courtyard and chased after them without stopping. Thus, Lei Ming was escorted to the bus. Tang Jing, Wu Yiyuan and Lin Hu sat on the carriage. Lin Hu became the driver, and as he drove he said, "Young Master Tang, even if you go find trouble with Lei Ming, you can't be too anxious. Otherwise, if you don't prepare enough, all 30 of us might be annihilated." Lin Hu believed that Tang Jing would definitely be able to defeat Lei Ming. However, seeing that he only brought around 30 people and dared to go straight to the Yellow Dragon, he was still a little unsure in his heart. After all, Lin Hu had been in the underworld for so many years, and Lei Ming's great name was like thunder to his ears. He knew more about it than Tang Jing. As the saying goes, those who don't know don't do it. The more you know about a person, the more you understand how powerful that person is. Lei Ming was such a powerful person. Even though he was a member of the underworld, his family had been operating in Jade Sand for 2 generations. The Lei family could be said to be a famous underworld family in Jade Sand. Although they had restrained themselves a lot, where was their background? Ordinary people would not be able to shake this local tyrant. Hearing Lin Hu's analysis, Tang Jing nodded his head in realization. No wonder Lei Jun was so unbridled, his family background was not simple. It is said that Lei Ming can gather over 1,000 people in Jade Sand with a single shout. Our 30 people are like a clay ox entering the sea. The situation is not optimistic. Lin Hu said worriedly. Tang Jing laughed out loud and said, "You are underestimating Yuan's clansmen too much. They are natural warriors, and this is a good time to train them and let the world see the power of the Witch clan. Moreover, as the saying goes, speed is everything. This time we will take advantage of the fact that he is not prepared and catch him off guard."